Good evening, TikTok land. Apologies. We're getting a lot of messages coming in. There's an outage of internet in a large part of the US, and so some of our creators are scrambling for creative ways to get on here tonight. How is everybody? And welcome to our second annual presidential series TikTok Town Hall. Tonight, we're going to have a bunch of very large creators joining us. We are preparing to bring up a bunch of creators you guys keep sending my way. I'm super duper excited. I am so glad to have people joining us. And then tonight, our presidential candidate is none other than Chase Oliver. Chase Oliver is the Libertarian Party's candidate for president for 2024. One of the things I think people are going to be shocked by is pretty much everything you think you know about libertarianism. I mean, everything. I recently covered the Libertarian National Convention, and as I was covering issues, I cannot tell you how many hundreds of people said things in my live streams like, did I just become a libertarian? Why didn't I know this was a thing? Why didn't I know this party existed? So, oh, hold on. It says my connection. Fix it. Are we getting better? Are we getting better? Somebody give me a yes if it's getting better. I'm in the middle of Phoenix. I don't have great choices, but maybe I could connect to the internet. We have a couple minutes while people are still joining, and I have a password for the internet here. All right, beautiful. Love that. All right, let me see if I can find the password I need. Bear with me. All right, so tonight we have Chase Oliver joining us, Libertarian presidential candidate. This coming Sunday, we have Jill Stein joining us, which is the Green Party presidential candidate. And then next Thursday, we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. coming in again on a topic-specific town hall on the sickening of America, on collusion and collaboration between the industrial, agricultural complex, industrial, pharmaceutical complexes, and so we have a lot of really exciting stuff coming up, guys. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. I got to be honest, there was not a single moment where I ever thought when I started inviting presidential candidates to just come in and talk to people, they're going to be like, sure. And here they are. And that's because of all of you guys actually showing up, so I'm super excited. I hope you guys are excited too. Tony, I thought you said you needed 20 minutes. Are you just watching from the car? Just give me a thumbs up if you are. I don't want you to do anything crazy. I want you safe, I guess is what I should be saying. I would like for you to be safe. Okay. Beautiful. I will get you in when you get to your house. I am sorry the internet is down at your office. All right, so we have a lot of topics we're going to be covering tonight. Just like last time, this is going to start just like last time, this is going to start with all of us getting together, just creators, and asking people in the comments what you want us to ask about. I was lucky enough to cover the Libertarian National Convention, so I happen to have their national platform guide. So I have the ability to literally give you guys a frame of reference during the early conversations, and we can talk about things that maybe people will find surprising, maybe people won't be surprised by. But I think a lot of you are going to be absolutely shocked by what's actually discussed and what you find out the Libertarian Party actually stands for. I'm a firm believer that third parties are a thing and that we need radical cooperation, not divisiveness in the United States. And so as a result of that, I find myself working very, very hard to bridge these gaps and bring you guys voices that the mainstream media is not bringing you. And that is why tonight we are bringing Chase Oliver to the podium. I'm super excited. I hope you guys are super excited. I'm here. Beautiful. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, James.
Hey,
The comments
how
are
you guys doing?
So I'm going to try to make you guys bigger. I'm never good at this part. I need people like Tony to help me with this, but we're going to figure it out.
I think it's in the like the multi-guest and the grid sittings, I think.
Thank you.
Layout grid. I also don't mind being small.
Grid. Which?
Go.
Hey.
Hey.
We'll keep working through this as more people get in here. Now we're going to start off tonight with James Lee, Lindsay Taylor, and Terralyn Romero.
Oh, wow, Tiff. I am so proud
I'm
of
not
you.
allowed to say her name, so I have to say not Tara. So she's just going to get that on there. I'm just kidding. I won't do it again.
Really good.
How is everybody? Everybody's good this evening? I am super excited about tonight because I had such amazing feedback throughout the entire Libertarian convention of just constant comments of people saying, why did I know about this? Why has the media never told me about this? Why did we not know that a party felt this way about this issue? And I think that the answer is because they don't want you to. And how you guys feel about that, but that's what I tend to lean into as the reason.
Well, I think a lot of times in mainstream media, especially like the more liberal mainstream media, they kind of lump libertarians in with MAGA, but I don't think I'm sure there's a lot of overlap, but I don't think Trump got that good of a reception. You were right there, right? When Trump spoke at the Libertarian National Convention. What was the reception?
So I was in the front row at Trump's speech at the Libertarian National Convention. I was also in the front row for Bobby Kennedy's speech at the Libertarian Convention. To say those were very different receptions is the understatement of the century. Catalyst, I brought you up, but I think there's some noise going on in your feed.
I'm sorry. I'm at the grocery store. So, yes. But yes. Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for bringing me up, Tiff.
I just wanted to bring you in to say hi. And, if you want to, we do roundtable during the first hour, and then we kind of bump everybody out and bring the candidates in. So here we are. Awesome. The main thing right now I want to try to ascertain is what people in the comments want us to ask about. I have lists of questions for Chase Oliver. I have their entire national platform in a very well-organized binder. I am ready and excited, but I need to know what you guys want to know. I want to know what the viewers want to know. And when I went to the Libertarian Convention, it was definitely very chaotic because there were 2 other presidential candidates coming. A lot of people thought that was unique to this year. In fact, the Libertarian Party has invited all presidential candidates historically always. They've just never shown up. So Sarah, we have Chase Oliver, the Libertarian presidential candidate, joining us tonight. We have Jill Stein joining us on Sunday and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joining us next Thursday.
Oh, he's coming back, huh?
Justin, Watermelon Viewpoint, he's coming in on one about healthcare and the rise of illness and chronic disease epidemics in America.
Okay, I'm just saying this now, I'm putting it out there. I have got to be on the one for healthcare. I've been in the industry for 23 years. I have my degree in healthcare administration.
Next Thursday.
Girl.
Next Thursday, my dear.
I will not.
All right, Justin, I have your question about watermelon, and it will be asked. I've got it down. All right, so any of you that want to know where the Libertarian Party stands, because remember, it's not just a presidential candidate. This is a national platform, and there are candidates all across the U.S., and there are many states where candidates in the Libertarian Party are elected in House legislatures, state legislatures, senators, right? We've had Rand and Ron Paul for a long time from the Libertarian Party, right? So you have to Barry Goldwater. In libertarianism, we trust. Let's see, Claudia De La Cruz, JJ24. If she has ballot access, feel free to send me over her info. I'm always willing to have them on. Let's see. Use my intro to libertarianism as well, but exploring. All right, so if you're in the comment section, what we're asking right now is what you want us asking about. Can we do a debate and ballot support? Ron Paul, money for RFK Jr., set a date. You want me to host a debate? I will 100% host a debate on this app if they'll show up. I will 100% host a debate on this app. Oh, Ian is here, everybody. I'm going to bring him up.
Yay.
We get Ian for 1 hour, so we're going to have to enjoy him while he's here. Hi, Ian.
Hey.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
You got your ponytail in today, so fancy.
You can.
Yeah, dude, I'm walking around downtown Boston right now.
We're just happy to have you. He's got a very busy schedule this week, guys. He's on a project in Boston, and we are definitely the squeeze today. So I am grateful he's here.
Glad to be here. I'm going
Like
to keep
his
my
shirt, he
mic
does look
muted anytime
solid.
that I'm not talking so that I don't get all hot mic'd on you guys. But I'm
We appreciate
stoked to
it.
be here.
Dustin Schreiner. Oh, Dustin. Dustin, I'm writing down your topics you've asked us to cover: military overkill, military spending, and imperialism.
Someone also said prison reform.
Oh, that's a fun one. We don't have any questions on that right now, so if anyone wants to take that up, do let me know.
I'm just like scrolling through the comments.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If we have any trusted moderators you guys know from moderating yours, I have like 15 assigned moderators, but it depends how many are in your trip. Can you moderate? Let me see if I can get Trip as a moderator.
Oh yeah, if she's in here, she'd be
Trip,
perfect.
I'm assigning you as moderator. I know you'll help because last time it got crazy once RFK came on, and I imagine the same thing is going to happen here. It got really, really intense the longer we were in the feed. All right, so prison reform. Black Sheep Blooms, I've got you. Now we will get him for 1 hour. He will be joining us at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. A lot of people think that libertarianism is like republicanism light. That is not what libertarianism is. There are many libertarian ideals the Republicans have tried to claim, but I want everybody to understand why that's important. Whenever a third party starts to rise in America and people start to favor the politics of that party, the more votes they take from the two parties, the more likely those parties are to absorb their ideals. Which is why when anyone tells me a vote for a third party is a throwaway, it's absolute garbage. If we don't vote for third parties, the things we love with those third parties can never be absorbed in the mainstream. It won't happen. But the more of us make our voices heard on third parties, even if our third parties don't get elected, which they could if we actually showed up to vote, even if they don't get elected, the more of us that vote for them, the more likely it is that the things we care about passionately about their platforms will become reality in one of the two parties. That's how you force change. Third party support is where the most common changes in the direction of a party originate over the past 150 years consecutively. I'm looking down here. What do we have coming in? Ooh, Sparks, you here? Do you want to come up, Callie? This one came together last minute, and it wasn't first minute. I didn't want to push it on you, but I'd love to have you up.
Tiffany, you can also add me as a moderator if you need another one while I'm here.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm 100%. Can I do that when you're already in here?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. I'm not as good at this as Tony is. He's like my navigator. All right, done. All right, I sent you an invite, Callie. Okay, so when we're looking at the libertarian platform, it's very important to recognize it is not republicanism light. And since I'm going to bring you every third party candidate I can and every single candidate's platform so everyone understands that while we are a two-party country generally as a long historical rule, we are not mandated to stay that way. And right now, for the first time in American history, there are more registered independent voters than there are any other party. That has never, ever, ever happened since the founding of the United States. So if we just show up, things will necessarily change. And we get to choose how that works out. It could change because enough of us show up to actually elect a third party that looks like they have a chance. It could change because enough of us show up to vote for all the third parties that suddenly everyone panics and those platforms start to get absorbed. But one way or another, it will start to change.
Yep. I think that's the biggest barrier right
I've
now
got your
to
question.
change. That's the biggest barrier to change right now is people think that it's a throwaway vote, it's a wasted vote, and that it's always going to be a two-party system. Nope. The time is ripe right now to make a change. I've been saying what you're saying, Tiffany, to people, and they honestly do not believe me. I don't know if we can pull up graphs and charts, But you guys, it's a real thing, especially here in Colorado. I'm sure state by state, it probably looks a little bit different, of course. But in
Dustin, I've got
Colorado,
you.
that holds true.
Campaign finance reform as a question. If anyone wants to take that up, flag me and let me know. Callie, if you want to come up and ask any of these questions, we got a whole bunch of them. Tony, let me know when you actually get home, okay? Hey, Andrew, welcome. Tonight we're having on Libertarian presidential candidate Chase Oliver. I'm very excited. Then Sunday we will be having on Jill Stein from the Green Party. And next Thursday we will have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. back to discuss healthcare and chronic disease epidemics in America, along with how that lines up between big ag and big pharma. It's going to be an interesting town hall. We named it The Sickening of America. We're very excited about it. Thanks, Kelly. I really appreciate the support. Thank you. And when you are feeling better, if you want to come in and help and come up on Sunday or next Thursday, I would love to have you. This one came together short, but I'm so glad you're here. All right. So
one point that I wanted to add. Somebody asked what can we achieve by voting for third party if they can't win. But there's an important threshold, the 5% threshold that everybody should know about when at the presidential level. If a third party gets above 5% of the vote, the popular vote, then that means they're eligible for FEC campaign funding for the next cycle. So that means that with more funding, they'll be able to do more outreach. People will know their message more, then more people learn. So it's kind of like a snowballing effect each time. So maybe this time probably can't win, but a win doesn't necessarily mean they become president. But it's a movement to build this kind of awareness and support for these other ideas that are out there that people support.
You know, a lot of people, they've conditioned us very well to believe that a third party vote is a throwaway vote. We know that's not true. We saw it when post Ross Perot, when he obtained 18.55% of the vote in America, right? The two parties split up his platform, almost 50-50, and absorbed things he talked about into their platform to make sure he would never be able to come back and do that again. Things changed. But one of the things that's really important is to understand where the two-party system originated from. You okay, Linz? Hi. Lindsay's not feeling well and she's still here. She's really not well. So I'm very grateful she's here.
Had a hand getting up, but I just wanted real quick. My husband here is a big fan of Ian's, so he wants to say hi.
We're all big fans of Ian's, obviously. So one of the things that I just want to stress to you is that historically the two-party system in practicality was a good idea. When you look at how parliaments run with massive numbers of parties, you see people throwing punches and things at each other instead of getting things done. It can feel very, very difficult when every time a new party gets control, the prime minister changes and they have to have new elections, and it feels very chaotic. It's very slow moving. In America, the two-party system was created by our founding fathers as an idea to limit extremism, okay? It was designed to make it so that both parties always had, like, nobody ever felt like their voice was not heard, because there was a range in each side of how right or how left you were. And that meant that because there were two parties and America was divided in two on those issues, that there would always be collaboration. So even if nobody got everything they wanted, there was always going to be a way to know your voice was heard in the compromise. Since 2010 and the rise of Citizens United, what has happened is we have we're no longer limiting extremism, because instead of every voice feeling represented, no one feels represented. All of the politicians have been captured by billionaires, and we're no longer left versus right. We are a country of up versus down. And that is going to give rise to extremism in a different way unless we can make voices heard. And so when I say the two-party system historically, in practice, was designed to make it so everyone felt heard, that is no longer the case. That is no longer happening. And something has to give. That is my personal opinion, but historically that was the purpose of the two-party system. And right now, billionaires are being heard and everyday Americans are not. And that is why, for the first time in American history, we have more Americans that have left the two parties than have stayed. That has never happened before. Nobody feels heard. Nobody feels represented. And it's also gotten worse because we have this purity testing sort of cycle we're in, where everybody wants to prove they're the most right or the most left or the most libertarian or the most green. And as a result of the purity testing culture that's happening the last 15 or so years in the primaries, we've reached a point where if I don't get everything, I'm not going to take anything. So nobody's getting anything and no one is being heard. Thoughts on that, guys? Anybody?
Tiff, I definitely want
Also,
to.
political parties have become like corporations in and of itself as
They
well. I
really
don't know
have.
if you said that to me, but they're like fundraising machines. They exist for their own self-preservation. They don't really exist to represent anybody. They exist to continue to exist in the same
You can look
form.
at that when you look to the DNC's own arguments when they were sued by their voters for disenfranchising Bernie in 2016. They sued them and the DNC argued, we don't owe our voters anything. We're a business. They argued it. And that's, in my opinion, how Trump got elected. They lost their voters because they sued their own voters. Catalyst, what were you going to say? I'm so sorry. You both started speaking at once.
No worries. I just wanted to just chime in on this concept of the third party right now. I really think it's I think it might be. I think it's too risky for us to try to do this in 2024. You know, we've never had a situation where we were facing full blown fascism like we're facing right now. And so if we split the vote and we don't elect Biden and Democrats, we get Project 2025 and those fascists. That's what we get. If we gamble and try to do this now, my whole thing is we need to maintain democracy by voting for Democrats. But then we tell Democrats on January 21st, once we inaugurate them, we say, look, dudes, y'all got 12 months to give us what we want. We are not going to have the same old BS that y'all give us. We elect y'all and then y'all get in there and do what you want. You got 12 months to give us what you want. And if not, in 2026 midterms, we're all going third party. That's when we do it, because at least we'll have a democracy. If we do this and lose, we get Project 25 and a dictatorship. And then what?
If that happens, would you blame the voters that vote third party, or would you vote the DNC that disenfranchised Bernie and refuse to primary Biden to put up a reasonable candidate?
Listen, the blame is going to be on both people. This isn't about so much blame as it is about responsibility, right? We've got to be pragmatic in terms of our solutions. We don't even know if third parties have a path to 270. And if you don't have a path to 270 electoral votes, what's the point?
Right now, we have 3 parties that are on well over 270 path balloting in the United States. At least 3, possibly 4. Right now.
Okay.
RFK exceeded it last week with Minnesota, and that's not even accounting for 3 states on the eastern seaboard. He just finished with South Carolina and Maryland. And then we know that the Green Party has access, and Libertarians, they're struggling up in New York, though. They've put up a real fight against the Green Party in New York State. And then we know that the Libertarian Party will have a path to 270 ballot access. They always do.
Okay. Well,
What I will say
that's my position. I just wanted to put that out there for the conversation.
I do. Historically, and I'm going to say this and know that people get mad at me when I say it, but I'm going to be honest about it. My husband and I went to school studying election history and strategy. That's what we went to school for. There is, in my and every other election strategist I know in the world's opinion, no path for Biden to win. There has never been any candidate in history with his metrics and the disfavor with the economy that he has that has had even a 5% chance given by most strategists of a win. And if you want my honest opinion, and it's not going to be popular, maybe, the reason they moved the debate to June 27th against Trump and Biden was not to exclude RFK. It's because the DNC needs to see how badly Biden falls on his face so they can replace him at the convention. There has never been a presidential debate in the history of elections before the 2 candidates were seated, ever. The only reason the DNC would do this would be to have an excuse to unseat Biden. It's never been done. They need to see how bad he's going to do so that they have a chance to try to do something, anything about it. And I know that's not It's not popular to hear, but a third party candidate might actually be the only chance we have.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
It's really hard to hear that, but they should have primaried him. The man literally wandered off at a memorial yesterday, and I can't stand Trump. I have been merciless about dogging Trump on Julian Assange and a host of issues. But Biden is literally wandering off, and presidents and prime ministers are dragging him back to podiums. There's just not a path for him, especially not in our current economy and when they're not willing to take him on the campaign trail. I've invited him to this. He's not taking any town halls, any interviews. He's not doing any debating with an audience that's live. They want delays on his mic so that people don't find out when he mumbles. Like, it's not good. And while I understand that that's the risk, we need to look at where it came from and realize if we keep feeding the monster of the DNC and the GOP, it's going to keep growing. It's not going to be better for us next time. And the midterm elections, 4% of the population turns out. And they're all the most deeply entrenched left and right. They're the only ones that vote. I want to change that. That's why I'm doing this. I want to change that. But we're never going to come back in the midterm. Not on the first go. I don't know how we would do that.
And
In a
also,
presidential
once
election, we
you've
have a
elected
better
a candidate, like, how do you hold them accountable? Like, everyone we've ever elected in my lifetime has made a lot of promises they haven't kept. And it's easy to keep doing that when there's only two options and you're in for 4 years. And, like, you know, there's a certain amount of, like, not collusion, but just, like, a lot of handshakes that go beyond both those two parties. That there's nothing to hold them accountable to their promises, because what are we going to do? Vote for the other guy that is diametrically opposed to everything you believe in?
Yep.
Well, with regard to that, you know, the fix is citizen reform, right? We've got all these hundreds of thousands, not millions of people around the country protesting and going to rallies and marches, right?
Yeah.
That's worthless. We need those people to get registered to vote. We need those people to do, to get involved in a campaign, run in a campaign, run for office, right? Voting is the minimum requirement that we're supposed to be engaging in as citizens. We need citizen reform because we're supposed to be the check and the balance. We're the ones who are supposed to be holding our elected officials accountable when they don't do what we want them to do. We're supposed to organize in our communities. We're supposed to go talk to our other neighbors and say, hey,
Yes.
look, Senator X, Y, and Z is having a town hall meeting. We need to let him know he didn't vote for the bond that we wanted in our city. And if he doesn't fix it, then we're not going to wait for an election. We're going to run a petition. We're going to do a recall election and fire his ass. And once the politicians realize that we, the citizens, are paying attention, that we know the issues, then they will do our bidding. But they don't do our bidding because we don't participate. You know, we're the
I
tips of the
agree.
spear, right? We're the
Everyone
tips
here
of the
agrees
spear.
with you.
So, but I think that's our solution is we've got to use our platforms to teach people how to be activists. We've got to give them action items, not just informational content to say, hey, look, here's another example of how broken the system is. We've got to teach people how to be activists.
I will say that I agreed with just about every single word you just said. The one thing I don't agree with is that there's never a waste in protesting. If you look at the Vietnam War and the historics of what happens in elections as a result of protesting, the protests that preceded the elections on Vietnam led to the ending of that war. It's never a waste to protest. You create long-term political activism when you create protesting in youth and in adolescence, right? Like you do. There's never it's never a waste. Our First Amendment protects a number of things, and it's the First Amendment because it's first, right? It protects freedom of speech, freedom of press. Nothing can infringe on your practice of religion, but it also addresses our right to protest and seek redress of our grievances with our government. And that's in one sentence together because they go together. Protesting is essential to the seeking of redress of grievances with our government, right? So I agree with everything you just said. People need to vote. I have never believed people needed to vote more in my life. But voting for the same two parties, it's not going to work this time. We've reached a
Well,
point where no one has a voice, and we're going to start seeing extremism in our country that we should all be very fearful of. Very fearful.
well, well, let me be clear. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't protest. I'm suggesting that our protests need to be different. Back in the day, they did protesting primarily because they were trying to make people aware. They were trying to create awareness. We don't have that because now we on social media
Oh, hold on.
millions of people in the world. So
Catalyst,
our
your
protests just need to be
signal's
different
not
and they need to
there.
be
We can't hear
effective.
anything you're saying. It just sounds like static. I don't know. Okay. Tony is going to come up, everybody. I'm
I'm
bringing him
sorry,
up.
better now?
That is a
Better?
bit better, yes. We're about to reach peak Brady Bunch here, guys. I do want to stress, and for people that are just joining us in the feed, I just want to stress to everybody what's going on tonight. We are going to be joined in approximately, I don't know, what time is it? We're going to be joined shortly by Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate for President of the United States 2024. I think a lot of you guys might be very, very surprised by the Libertarian platform. We have been asking everyone in the comments to give us the area of questioning you care about the most. Tell me what you want to know, because we have a lineup of questions we are ready for. Try what again? All right. So no, Chase Oliver will be joining us at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's when he'll be coming up. And each of our contributors will be in the chat, and we're going to be asking him, those hard questions you guys have been submitting to us.
Hey, Tiff, I just wanted to, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify
Yes.
that I'm not suggesting that protests aren't valuable. I'm suggesting that we each modify it. That protest
We're losing you again.
awareness, right? Used to raise awareness. Oh, damn, I got a bad signal. I was just saying that
I can hear your
protesting
voice. Your face just isn't matching it. You can keep going.
on issues.
I agree. It should be raising awareness.
That issue
It
with
also
raising
sends a
awareness
message
today.
to. Oh,
What?
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you. It just wasn't making any noise. I'm so sorry.
Again,
Yeah, he just keeps going in and out.
Yeah, Catalyst, we may want to drop down and come back up in a minute after you get to a signal. You're frozen and we can't hear you. Here, I'm going to reboot you. I apologize.
Welcome to the party, Tony. Good to see you, brother.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. I'm walking around in Boston.
Come back in after you get to a good
Thinking
signal. I really
libertarian
enjoyed
thoughts.
having you.
You're feeling extra good. You let your hair down. I love that for you.
He did.
Let it down, baby. It's great.
One thing that's
Over
been
in
on my
Harvard
mind a
Square,
lot,
there's
guys,
always a
that
jazz
I'm
band this
planning
time of night. You
to
should go
talk
check
to
it out.
Chase a lot about, is that we all went through this whole pandemic thing together, and whether people have identified it as Libertarian Party or not, I think a lot of people got associated with sort of like the base principles of the Libertarian Party through being associated with the base principles of, like, whether you think they're justified or not, and I'm not saying that you need to think they are or aren't, but like regardless, the policies during COVID were rather authoritarian, either for the greater good or against the greater good, depending on your perspectives on them. And so I think it got a lot of people just more associated with the understanding of like what liberty is and when you should and should not sacrifice it. So I think it's kind of an interesting time because the Libertarian Party has a lot more eyes on it this year all of a sudden. And I think a lot of regular people are thinking a lot more about what their personal stance is on those values.
I think one of the more troubling things about talking about libertarianism or anything else that feels middle of the road is if someone's new to the space, they're going to hear things that sound a little bit left, but they're also going to hear things that sound a little bit right. And I think there's so many of us that aren't used to being in that space that can create that cognitive dissonance that it turns people off. But I would just encourage for this particular live, just everyone in the chat, just remember, you're going to hear pieces of both sides. And that's the thing we have to get used to in these middle spaces. It's really important.
Are we twinning tonight, Tony?
I think we are.
That is an
You're a little more teal. I'm more of like a traditional green.
You
was
went
nice.
traditional Caddyshack. I
Mhm,
tried to go
Lindsay.
for Office, but we ended up matching. It's funny.
I know. I got
Tony, that's such a good point that it's important that in order to have good discussions, it's important to not presume that you need to agree with everything the other people are saying in order to listen to their points and consider what they're saying. And if you wind up at the end of that discussion or the end of what they say and you don't agree, that's cool. You've probably just elucidated on why you don't agree a little bit more than you would have at the start. Like, that's the whole point of civic debate. And that's why the middle is so cool and why what you're doing on your channel is so cool.
Yeah, I appreciate both of you and the content that you make so much, because for me, not being a super educated person in politics, I've just always been, the type of person that can see good and bad on both sides, and I just don't understand why we always have to pick between the lesser of two evils. So I find it fascinating to be here, and I just, thank you for allowing me to be part of something that I feel like I got no business being part of.
Lindsay said that to me today, and I was so appalled when she said she didn't feel like she belonged here, because the reason 100 million people stay home from the voting box every year is because they think they have no business making their voice heard in politics. And I said, there's nobody that belongs on this stage more than an everyday, hardworking mom, kids with autism, health issues, school issues. That's literally 100 million women in America that don't feel like their voice matters in politics.
Never.
In
And I
what
also
world?
feel like it's, I was one of those people who were always trained to think that voting for a third party candidate is a throwaway vote, and I hate that, because my intuition has always said, why are we stuck with the which person is going to be more evil than the other, when the third party might actually have views of good and bad on both sides. And maybe this is time where we all wake up a little bit and just be a little bit more open-minded, that it's not just red or blue. And I think that's really important to just open our minds about.
If didn't vote could win an election, it would have won every single election in our lifetime.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah, people think, I see it in the comments here too, like, oh, it's rigged, it doesn't matter if we vote anyway. I think there's power in numbers, and everybody should vote.
Ooh,
It's step one, right?
East Coast Persian, great comment. So East Coast Persian just said, we need ranked choice voting. That is such an amazing statement, because we do need ranked choice voting. We need to stop having to choose between the lesser of two evils and start voting for who we really want in order of who we really want. I could not agree with you more. I 100% applaud that comment. I will add it to our list for tonight. And Dogma, right above him, you said, I've never voted because I never believed in any of the candidates. I made a conscious decision this term. I, in my entire adult life, have voted against people. I have voted over and over again to keep someone out of office, never because I wanted someone in office, over and over and over again. There may have been some gray area in Obama's first run where I was like, that could be hopeful. I was so wrong. I was so wrong. It just became more of the same. He expanded big corporatism, and he expanded deregulation, and he expanded big government, and he expanded a lack of privacy, and he expanded a loss of liberty, right? Everything he said, he just tossed out with the bathwater when he walked in the door. But I made a decision this election that I will never, ever, ever vote against somebody again. Being convinced that that was not my choice is what brought me here and hundreds of millions of us. I will never do that again. I will vote for whoever I feel could serve better, because when we all start doing that, things will change. And right now, there are more registered independents in America than there are Republicans and Democrats. We are the majority. We are. So why shouldn't we act like it?
Voting is really just step one as well. Like, that's our civic duty, is to cast that vote. But there's no world where one political or civic action is going to institute the changes that we want. Everything is this growing, evolving, organic process of changing our civilization, which is really what we're talking about here. So when people say, does voting really matter? Well, yes, but if you're looking at a pie chart, we have to consider like how much of that pie chart it consumes. It's just one of the pieces of our duties as citizens. And I don't think that can be overstated. I really don't. So yes, it matters. It does. But we can't place all the weight of change on that single vote. There's a lot more to change than that, especially when we talk about systemic stuff.
So we have about 20 minutes until Chase joins us. I'm going to kind of give everybody a little primer because we are going into the Libertarian Party. Libertarian is liberty first, period. And a lot of you are going to be really shocked by some of his statements and some of those issues, I think. When I was broadcasting live from the Libertarian Convention, the most common comment I got was, why didn't I know this? And the second one was, am I a libertarian? Those are my top two comments in my live from the debate that day. Am I a libertarian? That was like the second most thing anyone commented in my feed. And I had, like 70,000 voters at that debate, or viewers, not voters, viewers. So I'm going to stress, Chase is a masterful debater. He's an amazing orator. He's pretty quick, but we have a lot of topics to cover in an hour. Think about how fast this first 40 minutes just went. Like, it goes quick. I know we have some people asking to come up. I tried to bring Dustin up first because he was the first request. He hasn't come up. Dustin, did you still want to come up? It looks like it dropped you when I tried to bring you in because you were the first request. Purple USA, did you still want to come up? You were the next request.
Got Dustin and Purple up in here. Nice.
Farm Fresh, if you'd like to join us, I'll bring you up for the Brady Bunch number 9.
Hey, Dustin.
How you doing, buddy?
Hi, Dustin.
Howdy, not bad. I am really looking forward to this. I jumped headfirst into libertarianism whenever Ron Paul was running, and I saw these old clips from where he was in the mid-2000s trying to tell everybody there was a housing bubble, like that it was like using basic Austrian economic principles. You could identify that there was a housing bubble, that the Fed was manipulating interest rates, causing people to draw the wrong conclusions, and they invested in something that was unsustainable. Like, this was, it blew my mind that he was able to see it and nobody else did, or at least they weren't talking about it. And so I've kind of been on this since then. Like, libertarian arguments are incredibly poignant. I really think that there's merit in this third party, is what I would say.
I agree with you. I see my opinion of the biggest flaw in libertarianism is that they engage in aggressive purity testing amongst their own ranks. There's a lot of divisions within the libertarians. There's a bunch, it's kind of wild. Like, I actually filmed a whole video of the fashion of the Libertarian Convention, and I haven't posted it yet. But when I tell you, there was an entire goth contingent, and there was this is not a disrespectful thing to say, it was like the hillbilly contingent of people in overalls and like flannels, and like literally showed up with like straw just to like have it as a gag. There was a troop, a scout leader contingent. That was kind of wild. There was the LGBT contingent of libertarians. When I tell you, their caucuses were aggressively distinct. It was wild to see how diverse their party base is, but they purity test really aggressively. And and so when you reach that point of purity testing, that's how we've gotten so divided as a country, right?
Right.
When you do that so aggressively, you say, I want everything or I want nothing. Nobody gets anything except the billionaires, because their laws always seem to pass. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, no, the ability to leverage like a minority being able to leverage the majority of capital against the actual majority of people is unsustainable. And like, I think that's got to be addressed by any platform that if we want to have a chance of winning, campaign finance reform has got to be at the heart of what we're going to do. Like, if you can't keep your politicians from being bought, then what chance do you have?
That's a start.
Sure. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, campaign finance reform is the one that you can get all or most people, when you're talking to them, you get them nodding their heads like, yeah. Like, pretty much everyone in this box is like, yeah. That's
9 out of 10.
For sure.
Nothing unites that many people.
Very few topics can get that much head nodding, yes. And I think that's one of the key issues, and that's a lot of what gets muddled in these conversations is the priority list of what needs to change. Because when we talk about, if we were to sit here and listen and just start cleaning house one by one, and not only will we begin to repair the system itself, we will have changed feelings about one another because of this group activity that we seem to be participating in a wide and distant collective that could heal a lot of things along the way. So yeah, I think just picking one like that, campaign finance reform, may be the one, but there's a few.
That is
Insider
the one.
trading might make that list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree. It's
That
the
is
most
the
unifying issue.
With campaign finance reform will fix the insider trading problem, because then you have politicians who are actually there to serve. And I guarantee you, Tony, you brought this up, but I guarantee you, I would be willing to bet all the money that I have, which is not too much, but I'd be willing to bet a lot of it that there will be zero campaign finance questions asked in the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. They will not ask one question about
Not
campaign
one.
finance reform.
No. That's an uncomfortable topic for those boys.
Because Trump, he said it
literally
the first
bragged.
time when he was running in 2016. He talked about, hey, I finance my own campaign. I'm not bought out. You notice that he's not saying this at this time anymore because he is bought out.
He's not.
This is a different Trump.
100% bought.
No, he actively bragged about buying other politicians, about circumventing the democratic
He did.
process as though that was something to be praised.
And I mean, it worked. I just think this time Trump 2024 is very different from Trump 2016. Like the stuff that he talks about is not at all the same. He doesn't talk about railing on big corporations. He doesn't talk about draining the swamp. He just wants to be president. This is
He was anything but in 2016. In 2016, it was anything but.
Yeah.
And he's no longer that. Like now there's a track record, like we've seen it fail. Like it's not good, right?
Yeah.
You've seen it in practice.
And so maybe, just maybe, some of these independent candidates, or at least on the national scale, can get a little more than 3% this year. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to see.
Somebody in the comments said something that made me go, huh? And I just want to bring it up. Again, this is not a debate, guys, but somebody said, great, I'll blame you if Trump wins and we'll all lose our rights. And it just made me think, like, aren't we here at risk of losing our freedom of speech? And that was under Biden. Like,
Yeah.
Is that not important to you? Like, it's crazy.
Like the inability to criticize Israel, like written into law, is a violation of the First Amendment. Like, period. There is no other way to
1,000%.
cut that,
And there have
bro.
been
Like,
2 laws
Yeah.
back to back to govern speech regarding what's happening in Gaza. 2 laws by both parties.
and you're over here like, well, next election. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
These are the questions and topics that they don't want us talking about. And this is one of the only places I've ever seen it happen so freely. And there's some censorship that goes on here. I've had some community guidelines where I was like, that's bullshit, TikTok. And you know it. You know it. But we're still here and we're able to have these conversations. And I don't really see this happening like this on really any other platform. Not quite like this.
You'll get more community guideline violations, Tony. I guarantee. You keep posting and you keep doing that, and they'll
Hit
keep
the Hall of Fames like this guy here.
I talked to Lindsay about this today because what a lot of people don't realize is it's the government's action against TikTok that's creating that censorship. Right now, they're in the battle for their survival.
Yes.
And anything that goes wrong as a result of TikTok will be the mechanism they use to stop it.
Yep.
Okay, to end it, to win their case. It's only going to take one big flash mob organizing on here, or one discussion of a pew and a following of somebody doing something really drastic. They are being forced to that position to defend their ability to preserve any speech at all. And that is a situation that has been created because these parties have worked together as a uniparty to go and destroy them in favor of the billionaires who have their ear and their campaign purse strings. And the PAC we know is driving the narrative about ending TikTok. We all know it.
Yeah.
Who's gonna say it? We all know it.
And it's so tough. I feel like it puts us in between like a rock and a hard place, because I want to be able to sit here and defend TikTok. Of course, I love TikTok. It's my home. But at the same time, like, I also want to be able to defend people in Gaza and post without being suppressed. And, it's just so hard. It's like you feel like you can't say anything, but at the same time, like, we're trying to preserve the platform as well.
Yeah, Lindsay, I'm literally getting flagged right now for posting about a family-owned farm and corrupt politicians. Everything's getting flagged. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not cussing. I'm not doing anything like that. And I'm having to appeal to get my videos back up. It's
tough right now, but we just got to keep posting and keep pushing through.
I mean, I don't think, even if they get rid of TikTok, I don't think that the level of organization that we've achieved on this app is going to go backwards. Like this is not, I don't think, even if they get rid of it, something else
We'll
will take
find
its
each
place.
other.
We'll find a
We
way to
will
replace it.
find
If we got to
each
build
other.
it ourselves, it will happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a market for it. If you get rid of it, someone will fill the market. Like that's a Austrian economic pilot. Like you can ask, you know.
I don't think
I just hope
TikTok's
the next
gonna go
social
anywhere
media that
fast.
we start at. I have this idea where it like happens in this app called the real world. That's the part where that's the one I'm
Crazy
most
real town
excited
square where we
about.
actually
I
talk to
really
each
want
other again.
that particular
That
app.
part.
And I like
Hey,
this.
Purple.
This is
Welcome,
cool.
welcome. Purple USA runs a platform that is entirely about, well, which is a lot like me. We're just bringing people back together. We're not red, we're not blue. We are a purple melting pot.
Yes. Hi.
Lovely to see you in the
Hello.
chat today, ma'am.
Hello. But yeah, the slogan is "My neighbor's not my enemy," and then I found all you guys, and that's lovely because you're right. There are a bunch of us that are thinking this way, and we have to be able to find each other. So that's the whole purpose of my website. I'm glad to be here, and I'm incredibly excited. And just thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We have 8 minutes until Chase is here. And so I would be really helpful, everybody, if you could sort of get your last request for questions. So there's just a question about Jill Stein. Tonight's about Chase Oliver, the Libertarian National Party candidate. However, Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Jill Stein will be here. So come back on Sunday and you will get to hear all about Jill Stein because she's going to be here talking to you herself. And nobody is more surprised than me that I started calling presidential candidates and they all answer the phone. Nobody. But just imagine if we'd all just started doing that sooner. Just imagine if we had just done that sooner.
We're
We don't
doing
need
it now.
the mainstream media anymore. We just go our own way. We don't need them. So here we are.
Mainstream media now.
That's right, we are. The attention economy is real.
For real. Somebody asked, how do we get the non-voters to show up? That's a great question.
Drag them. I'm not kidding. Have a party. Literally. I would like be down there with like mimosas outside and a pancake breakfast set up at the sidewalk. Get your friends and go. Get your friends and go. Just make it cool again because everybody wants to do what's in and nobody wants to do what's hard.
I
Make
wish
it
it were
fun.
that simple. You know, I feel like the people that I've spoken with, which is a lot of people in my, family, friend circle, very passionate people, very patriotic people. It's not about like it's hard work. It's about a complete distrust of the system to the point where they are completely indifferent and apathetic, and morally and ethically they would rather not participate and not be a part of it than vote. And that's a real hard barrier. My brother is one of those individuals, and we have a tough time, right? He's a veteran. He was in Iraq. He's a Marine. He will not vote. He will absolutely not do it because he does not want to participate in a system that he does not believe represents him. And there's no bridging that gap. And I think it's more about that, of people feeling disenfranchised, than it is people saying it's hard work. I don't think people are afraid of hard work. I think they're disenfranchised and they're without hope. And that's real tough.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of people that don't want to participate aren't registered to vote. He may or may not be. But what I can say is that when only 5% of registered voters turn out, I think there's room there. And I think we can make it that. Like, we can make gains. We just have to make it so that people feel good about voting for people they want to instead of just feeling like they're voting for something they're not comfortable with.
Is every single person in this box a millennial, by the way? Or near millennial?
First of all, sir,
Time.
Sir.
I am Gen Y and proud.
Elder millennial here.
Elder millennial as well. Okay, so we know bullshit when we hear it.
Jesus, that just
Every-
means I'm the oldest.
Every single voting initiative that came around, Rock the Vote on MTV, all these things, it always inflates the importance of voting to make it seem like it's the single most important thing you can do as your civic duty. And I think our job as millennials and influencers, especially if you're just out in the world talking to people, is remind them voting is like going to the gym one day. Like, you're not going to get ripped from doing that. It's like practicing guitar for one day. You're not going to be able to play whatever cool song you want to play. It's a process of action and putting mechanisms into place that actually function and have accountability. Who's going to hold the system accountable if the system won't do it itself? That's our job. But we can't do that if we're not active and alert. And so voting is important, and I think it's crucial. I said it earlier in the live, but it's not the last step. And I think our job is to help people see that it's like, yes, go vote, but that's just like step one. It's
Well,
like,
We're on a 5-minute countdown. I need to read something to get us ready to go. So we're going to read the preamble and the statement of principles from the Libertarian Party. I know that's not super exciting, but I want everybody to understand where this conversation is going. And the overwhelming majority of our viewers probably do not know what the Libertarian Party stands for. For everyone just getting into here, because we've had about 100 people join in the last couple minutes, Chase Oliver, candidate for president for the Libertarian Party, is coming in to answer questions live. We will have Bill Stein on Sunday and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. next Thursday. All right, preamble of the Libertarian Party. As libertarians, we seek a world of liberty, a world in which all individuals are sovereign over their own lives and not forced to sacrifice their values for the benefit of any other. We believe that respect for individual rights is an essential precondition for a free and prosperous world. That force and fraud must be banished from human relationships, and that only through freedom can peace and prosperity be realized. Consequently, we defend each person's right to engage in any activity that is peaceful and honest, and welcome the diversity that freedom brings. The world we seek to build is one where individuals are free to follow their own dreams in their own ways, without interference from government or any authoritarian power. In the following pages, we set forth our principles and enumerate our policy standards. These specific policies are not our goal, however. Our goal is nothing more nor less than a world set free in our lifetime, and it is to this end that we take these positions, though we are not defined by them. Next is their statement of principles. We, the members of the Libertarian Party, challenge the cult of the omnipotent state and defend the rights of every individual. We hold that all individuals have a right to exercise sole dominion over your own life and have the right to live in whatever manner you choose, so long as you do not forcibly interfere with the equal right of others to live in any manner they so choose. Governments throughout history have regularly operated on the opposite principle, that the state has a right to dispose of the lives of individuals and the fruits of their labor. Even within the United States, all political parties other than our own grant to government the right to regulate the lives of individuals and to seize the fruits of their labor without their consent. We, on the contrary, deny the right of any government to do such things and hold that where government exists, they must not.
We lost you, Tiff.
Do not disturb. I apologize. I'm here. Can you hear me? It says that even within the United States, all political parties other than our own grant to government the right to regulate lives of individuals and seize the fruits of their labor without consent. We deny the right of any government to do these things, and we hold where government exists, they must not violate the rights of any individual, and namely, that one, they may not infringe on their right to life. Accordingly, we support the prohibition of the initiation of physical force against anyone. The right to liberty of speech and action. Accordingly, we oppose all attempts by government to abridge the freedom of speech or press, as well as government censorship in any form. The right to property. Accordingly, we oppose all government interference with private property in any form, such as confiscation, nationalization, eminent domain, and support of the prohibition of robbery, trespass, fraud, and misrepresentation. So then I get 30 pages of their principles. But that I want everybody to have as a foundational understanding of where we are beginning tonight's our conversation with Chase. Now, my goal will be to keep as many people up in the box throughout, and then we'll kind of rotate between people. How many can we have on the right? Is it 8? We have 8 in here right now. So is it like 1 big one and 8 small ones? Is that how it is? I think that's what it was.
I'm not certain.
Chase is here. All right, everybody, we're going to get ready to bring Chase Oliver, candidate for president for the Libertarian Party of 2024, up into the chat, and we will get started. And here he comes, everybody. I'm going to rearrange how everybody looks, and we're going to move Chase into the big box, everyone. Move to, are we going to a panel? Fixed panel? Oh, I have to drop some folks out. What do I do? Dustin and Purple, I have to drop you guys down for a few minutes. I apologize. Are you all right with that? I just want to get Chase in the big box. Chase, if you wouldn't mind turning on your camera, that would be helpful so I can move you into the big box. Perfect. When you guys have a question ready, just let me know. Hello, Chase. Nice to see you.
Hello,
I saw
hello.
you like
Good
a
to
couple
see
weeks
you.
ago at the convention, but it's nice to see you again.
Oh yeah, good to see y'all. I'm actually in New Hampshire right now, ready to go submit our signatures to get put on the ballot tomorrow, hold a press conference, do some campaigning. So I'm really happy to be on the road, spreading the message of liberty across the country and letting voters know that they have an option outside of the two-party system that is under the age of 70, that supports your individual right to live as you see fit, and wants to fight the war machine as it exists all around the world. That's what got me started in politics. So I'm ready to take questions and hear from the TikTok audience and hopefully gain a lot of insight.
If we have a whole, we polled the audience. We'll have thousands of people kind of rotate through as we're doing this. We've noticed that in the past. I think our last one had like 90,000 viewers. And the night that I was broadcasting the debate with you, and then later the press conference after former President Trump's speech, I think I had about 150,000 viewers there. And one of the most common questions I got was, why have I never heard about the Libertarian Party? And then the second most common comment I got was, am I a libertarian? Those were the two most common comments.
Well, I believe the reason why a lot of people haven't heard from the Libertarian Party is because we live in this kind of two-party binary where the news, the media, and our culture just tries to trap people into a box that says you have to pick one side or the other. And this has created a hyper-partisan society, this polarized society where we have such division in our country. And it's only gotten worse in my adult life. Like since I've been 18, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And so they do, the media and their allies do everything they can to try to push out any third party, whether it's the Libertarians, Greens, Independents. Across the board, they try to make sure you only think that there's Republicans and Democrats on your ballot. Now, I think a lot of people are broadly more libertarian than they realize. Libertarians at the end of the day oppose the use of force. We don't want to force our way of life upon other people. We say we can live our lives in peace as we see fit. And if we're not committing force, fraud, coercion, theft, or violence, my message to the voters is your life is your life. Your body is your body, your business is your business, and your property is your property. It's not mine, and it certainly isn't the government's. A bunch of bureaucrats and 435 members of Congress who don't know you, they don't know your community, they don't know the way you live your life. And the best government is the most local government, which is self-governance, which is if you're taking care of yourself and living in peace, you should be free to go about your life as you see fit. That's broadly speaking what our message is, and I hope it's attractive to a lot of voters who are sick and tired of having the government tell them what to do, or that you have to be this way, or and really can govern our own lives.
We've been polling the audience all night about issues that are important to them. Some of the people here in the chat, these are all creators that come from all walks of life. Some of them they're all from different parties. Most of us are independent at this point, but we all started somewhere. And all of us have one thing in common, and that's that we just want a different path forward that isn't voting against people anymore. I think most of us have that very unifying belief that we are not going to vote against anybody anymore. We want to vote for something we believe in, and we want to feel represented, right? We want to feel represented. The one thing that's been requested the most in the chat, and I do have to get to one person's question because he can't stay long, but is what a libertarian would do, or what a libertarian believes on the capture of government by corporations and big money. That's been the most common question.
It's a great question. And certainly we all feel it in our lives that corporations have way more control, way more impact than they really should. And I think this is a result of these corporations buying and paying for our government. Like our Congress is completely controlled by lobbyists and the corporate elites that control those lobbyists. And what they've done is they basically captured what should be a free market, what should be open for people to be entrepreneurs and start a business and grow. And they've gamed the system for the very top. They've basically made sure that all those nooks and crannies, all those carve-outs, all those deductions, all those subsidies go to the very top for the most part. And the real engine of our economy is small businesses. It's the mom and pop businesses that really built this country. And I think what we need to do is get rid of all these subsidies and deductions and carve-outs completely and just lower the cost of doing business overall. We want to cut the red tape that stops new entrepreneurs from entering into the marketplace. And we want to stop these barriers that the corporate elite have put in place that makes it harder for that small business to compete and grow and become a medium-sized business that can then compete and grow and become a large business that can hopefully one day become a big business. And it's this kind of inhibiting nature of the corporate capture that you're talking about. And so this is why I want to get government out of our lives altogether. I think absolute power corrupts absolutely. The more power we put in the hands of Congress to be able to regulate our lives, regulate the businesses, the easier it is for them to buy and pay for and basically game the system for the rich. I believe in fair rules of the road. I'm a old school classical liberal. So I do believe there has to be some sort of framework that protects civil liberties, that protects people from fraud and coercion in business. But what we don't need is government picking the winners and losers in businesses, and certainly not the winners and losers based on who fills their campaign coffers the most.
Okay, I want to bring, I'm going to let Ian Carroll from cancel this clothing down here. He is an amazing creator on X and here with a massive following, and he can only stay for a few minutes. I want him to give you his questions first, and then we're going to start rotating through the panelists and get you the ability to tell everybody what you're all about. Ian, go ahead.
Thanks for joining us, Chase. Really appreciate it. It's cool to have candidates actually coming to the people and speaking directly to us. So I appreciate it. You were saying earlier about how the Libertarian Party sort of like a lot of people are we were talking about how a lot of people don't know about the Libertarian Party, and a lot of people are actually interested in a lot of what the Libertarian Party stands for. I sort of have two parts to this question. Do you feel like COVID and the pandemic woke a lot of people up to libertarian values? And do you think that now that there seems to be more eyes on the Libertarian Party than in the past, do you think that the Libertarian Party should change in any way to accommodate more people? Or do you think the Libertarian Party should stay steadfast to what it's always been and let people stay or go as they please?
Yeah, well, and great questions. And to answer the first one first, obviously, I do believe that COVID woke a lot of people up to the tyrannies of government, to the fact that government can just very quickly decide arbitrarily to close down your business, to lock you down. And that is something that, a lot of people just weren't expecting. They didn't think that the government was going to do those things. And then when it happened, they got caught off guard. Libertarians for a long time have been speaking out against the tyrannies of government. Now, I do believe in the free market, property owners to do what they're going to do. But as far as government lockdowns and mandates, those need to be opposed. You need to be able to decide your own healthcare choices. We in the Libertarian Party say good ideas don't require force. So if something's a good idea to do, you probably shouldn't have to enforce that with the badge and the bullet, because that's what everything that government does is ultimately enforced by. The monopoly of force, the badge and the bullet. So I happen to think that, a lot of people got woken up to it, both in terms of the lockdowns, in terms of the closing of businesses. I had a friend, she owned a flower shop. That was her dream. She loved flowers. She could name every flower in the forest if she wanted to. And her business was deemed unessential. So she was shut down during COVID. But the Lowe's Garden Center right down the road, because Lowe's sold tools and other things, they were deemed essential. So they were kept open. Well, her business failed. And now she works at the Lowe's Garden Center. So her dream was taken from her, and now she has to work for the corporate man, all because the government just arbitrarily decided that her flower shop was somehow more dangerous for COVID than Lowe's was. And so it's that kind of arbitrary nature that just is very bad, and we see government doing it all the time. And I think even if you look at the way public education just wasn't prepared to be teaching through Zoom, and you saw many parents looking for educational alternatives, that's another thing that a lot of people found was like when they were doing the remote work, they saw their kids doing the remote classwork in the next room. They're like, what are these kids learning? Like, this is just not working well. My kids are not gaining the skills that they need. And I know people who pulled their kids out and they formed pod learning. They found 3 or 4 other parents who had kids the same age. They hired a tutor and they had in-person learning while all these other kids were learning behind a Zoom screen. And so I think a lot of people got woken up to, the inefficiencies of government from COVID. And then to answer your question about the Libertarian Party, I believe in being a big tent libertarian. I got brought into the tent. I was an anti-war Democrat, by the way. If you guys are wondering where I came from, I opposed the Bush war machine, and then I fought to get Barack Obama elected, and he didn't end the wars. In fact, he pushed drones further. He didn't close Gitmo. He didn't talk to our enemies without precondition like he promised, and the wars kept going. And so that pushed me out of the Democratic Party. And the Libertarian Party was at the Atlanta Pride Festival. Their candidate for governor was there actually campaigning on our right to live as we see fit, to love who we want to love. And he was standing on principle. And he waved me in the tent and he said, what's your biggest issue? And I said, the war machine. I want to stop the wars, man. And he said, well, this is a real anti-war party. let me sit here and connect your anti-war views with the greater philosophy of liberty. I want that to be the kind of welcoming nature for my campaign and for our party to say, whatever your libertarian issue is, whether it's educational freedom, entrepreneurship, opposition to wars, support for immigration, support for criminal justice reform, opposition to eminent domain, whatever is your thing, come in the tent and hang out for a while. Let's have a discussion. And I bet you become more libertarian as we connect your main issue with the greater philosophy. And if we're not being welcoming like that, if we're being exclusionary, going, you haven't read the right books yet, or you don't know the right things yet, we're never going to grow. And the purpose of me running is to grow this party foundationally, so we have something to challenge the two-party system in 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, and going on. And so I want people to come in. I want people to feel welcome, and you don't have to be ideologically pure to get in the door. And in fact, I think the longer you hang out with us, the more hardcore libertarian you're going to become.
That was a really great answer, Chase. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ian.
All right, so actually, I think I'm going to go towards Tony because Tony is middle road sanity down here, and he is a very a recurring host of lives where we just bring in people from different parties and find the middle ground and talk about how we can work together to change our communities. Tony, I know that your topic you wanted to bring up kind of fed off of what he just said about the war machine. So I'm going to let you go next.
Thanks for coming, by the way. That might be redundant by like the fifth or sixth time these guys in this panel say it, but we are appreciative of it, so thanks for your time. Knowing how deeply entrenched this big money influence is, we talked about corporations, but we have to expand it, I think, for a lot of people to understand that the industrial complex isn't just the military industrial complex anymore. There's all this wide range of industries that have kind of infiltrated Congress. So it would seem, what measurable actions do you think anyone could take, but especially someone with libertarian values? What would be the steps to start to unwind how tangled that mess is, especially with regard to the war machine? I'm also a former anti-war Democrat, very similar to you, opposing Bush and Halliburton no-bid contracts and all the stuff. So how would you approach just how deeply entrenched that is based on those libertarian philosophies?
So the first thing you have to do is start insisting that government stops doing so much, because it is involved and basically it puts its finger into every pie that it has. And so if I were elected president, the first thing I'm going to signify to Congress is that if you don't submit to me a balanced budget, it'll be a vetoed budget. Because right now we're putting $3 trillion a year in deficit spending to fund the military industrial complex, to fund all these giant government programs that are backed by corporate elite. And so my mission is to reduce the size so we're not putting $3 trillion a year and creating this inflation that all of us feel, because inflation is truly a hidden tax that hits every single American. It doesn't matter where your money is. And it's not one that's legislated. Nobody votes for that tax increase. Nobody votes for your wealth to be impacted this way. They just vote to increase the spending because they want to spread the wealth around to all the people who are funding their campaign. Now, how do we untie that knot? You start by reducing the overall amount of government agencies that have purview over a lot of this stuff. You start actually untying the knot where lobbyists don't have the ability to influence government because government's not influencing it. A free market is. And I think right now we have so much corporate capture because so much money flows through government. Like, just look at healthcare. Look at how much of the healthcare industry is going straight through government right now, through the red tape, through the regulation. And it's an inefficient way to do things. My grandpa used to tell me all the time, the government will tax you $1 and they give you back a dime. And that's because the other 90 cents gets washed away through the machine of waste, inefficiency, redundancies. And so part of the way we're going to have to start removing this corporate capture from not just the Halliburtons and the Boeings and the Raytheons of the world, but how do we get ourselves out of this pickle that we have with all these other corporate ties? By reducing what the state does, by reducing the ability for us to have to purchase things, and ask that these firms go back into the free market. Insist if your business is valuable, it should be valuable to individual consumers, and you don't need to have the government making these giant purchase orders for you just to keep you alive, just because a few hundred jobs are created in congressman in whatever's district from east, wherever the heck he is. And that's really how this works. This is where so much of the corporate money flows through, because basically it's about the power of incumbency. Congress people want to put money, they want to put pork into their district, and they do it even though they know sometimes that money is going to be completely wasted on a bunch of BS. It'll start a project that never gets built. Just look, where was it? I was just reading about a factory. This city spent $12 billion to try to help secure this factory to come here. And they said it was going to create 5,000 jobs. And then they ended up creating a factory like 1/10 of the footprint size, only created a few hundred jobs. And meanwhile, that city's now gone bankrupt because they did so much to try to lure these giant corporations in and screwed over the taxpayers in that city. So yeah, we got to remove this corporate control over our government, and part of that is just removing the power of government over our lives.
Tony, are you okay with me piggybacking on that comment with a comment from the comments?
I would love nothing more than for you to go comment on one of the comments.
Okay.
Piggyback away.
So Chase,
Bye, Ian.
JDS in the comments said, why is Chase Oliver so vague on Israel-Palestine? But I have to say, I live covered the debate at the Libertarian National Convention, and there was nobody more forceful than you on this issue. So please tell us, how do you feel on what is happening in Israel and Gaza and America's role in it?
Yeah, well, it's just very simple and just very black and white, right? No, it's not. Nothing in the Middle East is simple and black and white. But what is plain to see is Israel's response to what happened on October 7th has been foolhardy. It's been heavy-handed, and it's caused way too many civilian deaths. It is killing way too many innocent people. It is destroying the entire region of Gaza. Gaza has just been hollowed out based on this response. And let me just say this. I understand if we were attacked here in the United States on October 7th, and that kind of thing had happened to us, we'd be demanding some sort of response. But instead of using a scalpel and being able to take out the people who caused this violence, they've used a sledgehammer. And with this constant airstriking, with this constant traumatizing of the population, they have completely ruined any progress that could have been built in Gaza over the last few years. Like over my lifetime, it has basically been brought back down to zero. These people are desperate. When you see so many people who are suffering and dying in Gaza, and you understand that this is a direct result of the fact that the United States military has been arming, the United States government rather has been arming and securing Israel for being able to do this stuff. And we've not created any red line for them. We've not said, maybe if you stop killing tens of thousands of innocent civilians, if we're an ally to Israel, we would be standing up to the Netanyahu war cabinet government and saying, what you're doing right now is destabilizing the region. It's angering the Arab neighbors, and it's going to make it more dangerous to be the average Israeli in this country. There are Jewish voices in Israel who are crying out for peace because they understand that the actions of what the Netanyahu government is doing is genociding this population, according to the International Criminal Court, is a stain upon the legacy of that nation, and is harming the individual people who live within Israel. I want to see peace in the region. I do. I don't understand. That's not an easy solution. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. But it happens when people start calling for peace on both sides. We need people to call for this ceasefire. We need to see an end to this brutal action on the innocent people of Palestine. And yes, we do need to see the release of the hostages from Hamas. But guess what? When we have been airstriking all of Gaza, how many hostages possibly been killed by the very airstrikes that Israel is putting upon the people of Palestine? How many people have been killed? How many bodies have been mangled? And let me tell you right now, there's a former member of Congress, Justin Amash. He was a member of the Libertarian Party.
Oh, hold on. He got a phone call. Hold on, guys. Let me get him back. I'll get him back. It's okay. He did. I should have warned him to he'll be back in a second. I promise. I'm just saying, guys. So, just so you guys know what vote I'm referencing, just so you guys know what vote I'm referencing. During the convention, the question during the debate was, is Israel an ally or an adversary? And his answer was, I would argue Israel is not even an ally to the Israeli people. That was his answer. It was pretty straightforward. So anybody at JDS, I know you're saying wishy-washy. I have not seen that from Chase Oliver. He's been pretty serious about this issue every time I've seen him speak.
As I was going through his page, it didn't seem like he equivocated in any kind of way. Like he was pretty solid on where he stood.
Don't worry, guys. I'll get him back. Give me 1 second. He just came back. I got to get him back up in the big box. Bear with me. Here he comes.
I'm back.
I should have warned you to put do not disturb on. I'm sorry. That's on me. Oh.
Yeah, let me figure that out. Yeah, I think I got to put myself on do not disturb. Give me 1 sec.
You're a popular guy. We get it.
Why is it not working? There we go. Now I'm in do not disturb.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, no.
Hold on.
Okay.
You might have just airplane done himself.
We're almost there, guys. All right, so I'm gonna try to pivot a little bit to property rights because we were discussing it just before Chase came in. As soon as he's back again. Hold on. I'm gonna get him back in the big box. Hold on.
Can y'all
All
hear
right,
me?
here we are. We can.
Because I can't. I cannot hear y'all now. Let me see if I can turn up the
Oh,
volume
oh,
there. There we go.
is that better?
I think I. Yes, now I can hear you. Perfect.
Okay, great.
Yay.
All right.
I
So
think I made my point
we're
about
gonna
Gaza.
take a. You did, and I appreciate it because when somebody posted that in the comments, I was like, "That's not what I heard." So we're gonna pivot to something that we were reading the platform of the Libertarian Party to kind of prime people and discussing it right before you got here. And one of the things that was very apparent was that it mentioned in number 3 of the statement of principles the right to property. We have a creator here that has become quite famous in the United States because a government in Colorado tried to seize her property for a park, and she fought with everything she had and built an army that is now defending property rights for people all across the US. So I'm going to bring Terilyn Romero, and she is 4th one down, and she's going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Tiffany and Chase. Thank you for having the courage to go live with us. We're all going to keep doing this because we are so grateful and we want you to come back. When it comes to property rights, and we look at the economic state of citizens in America, where especially for the younger generation, the dream of owning property, whether it's a beach house, whether it's, a house in the city, it's further and further out of reach. In fact, it's so far out of reach that I think people are realizing that they may never own a home. So as President of the United States, what would you do to make home ownership more attainable for the everyday American, especially those in the younger generation?
Yeah. So I think first, I just wanted to say I saw somebody ask me what the Amash comment was about. Justin Amash lost family members in Gaza, and he talks about it quite openly. And rest in peace to those people. But now you mentioned property, and you mentioned how your home had been taken to build a park. I did want to just say that I have fought something similarly. In Atlanta, we had Peoplestown, which was a historically, generationally black neighborhood in Atlanta that was told that they had become a floodplain. And the truth was it was because the government wasn't cleaning the storm drains, so it was causing flooding in the area. And they decided to eminent domain their neighborhood, build a park for the gentrified condos that had just been built down the road. Because they said they needed green space for the condos. So why not remove people from their generational homes in Peoplestown? So I know all about the BS of eminent domain and how that affects homeowners and property owners, and I empathize with you. As far as making home ownership more affordable, the first thing we need to do is remove the regulations that involve us being able to build more homes. There's so much zoning requirements, particularly in cities, that just make the cost of getting a home or a condo just ridiculously expensive because they refuse to build multi-unit housings. People love their McMansions. They fear that their property values are going to be lowered if we build low-income housing or multi-unit housing. But the truth is I think your income or your homeowner, your property is far more affected by having people who don't have a home, people who are living on the street. That far more affects your property value than having some low income housing around you. Now, as far as facilitating the way people can buy homes, I think what we've seen is the more government gets involved in this process, the more the bubble and burst cycle of real estate happens. The entire real estate market fell out from underneath us and in 2008. And what we saw was banks getting bailed out, not individual homeowners when that happened. And that really, the too big to fail model of, hey, let's let the individual guy get screwed and let their mortgage fall underwater, but we'll bail out the banks so that where they have solvent to do this all over again in 10 or 15 years is not a really good cycle. Those banks should have failed. Their properties should have been liquidated out to the highest bidder. It should have been reallocated in the marketplace. And we would have had a much more stable real estate market here in 2024 if we had taken those steps in 2008 and 2009. I also believe one of the things we need to get rid of is this idea that we don't have space for housing. I mean, we have tons and tons of available land in this country. I encourage people who are looking for lower cost housing to get out of the city, to actually try to create communities, downtowns, new cities all over the country. My parents just moved from being really close to the city of Atlanta, and they were paying the same for a really kind of a crummy apartment than they are now paying for a house that provides security, that is much better for them and their situation. And so I think we also need to look to the idea of, not everybody needs to live in downtown. And we need to create systems that create ease for people to move from A to B without that. That's why I support things like the Bright Line system that allows high-speed rail that's privately funded through Florida. You're able to go from to Orlando and Miami in 3.5 hours. There's stops along the way. It's those kinds of projects that I think can help spread out people from where they're living And ultimately, getting government out of the way is going to lower the cost of owning a home, and particularly with zoning requirements. I did want to add one last thing. One of the things I think is really getting screwed over is transitional housing for the homeless in these communities, tiny homes. I know plenty of nonprofits that want to build tiny home villages in urban centers all over the country that allow people to get off the street, transitional housing where they can live for 6 months, get clean, get sober, get a job, and then move themselves into more permanent housing, and then the next person moves on in. But they're being prevented by local zoning regulations in the city, saying that that would be a nuisance population. But the truth is we have to get people off the streets. We have to have people into these transitional housing programs. And those are not best facilitated, by the way. That's best facilitated through mutual and direct aid through our communities. Just give the people their tax money back and let them allocate those resources in their communities.
I think we're going to have some more property-ish or adjacent questions, but I think they're more economic in nature. So I'm actually going to pivot to free speech, because we have a creator just beneath me, Lindsay Taylor, who, just this morning told me I don't belong in these conversations because I'm an everyday working mom and not a politician or a political. I don't understand a lot about politics, but she also makes her living on TikTok, and she has kids that she homeschools, and she has children that have autism. I don't know anyone that belongs in a conversation with a libertarian candidate more than Lindsay Taylor. So I'm going to let her come up and ask a question next. Lindsay, go ahead.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Chase. Thank you, Tiffany. I do feel like I don't belong here. I do feel like an uneducated human when it comes to politics. But one thing I just want to say is thank you so much for being here and answering our questions. It's so amazing to have a presidential candidate who is willing to be fearless and to be open and honest with us in such a live TikTok live stream. It's crazy. Anyways, I just had to follow suit because we're all going to thank you. We want you to come back. But free speech, I feel like that's something that is not talked about enough, because I feel like people, they're just like, yeah, whatever, nothing's going to happen. If we lose that, it's fine. It's like they don't fully understand the freedom of speech, freedom to press, freedom to protest. And, Tiffany and I have gone on lengthy conversations talking about how can we, stand on our own 2 feet and protest and help people in Gaza if we lose free speech. If we lose our free speech, we lose so much. So for me, my question is, with the looming possible TikTok ban that was being signed under Biden, tucked in a foreign aid package, it's just got me thinking, we've always voted on, I'm rambling, I'm sorry, the lesser of two evils, right? We vote red, we vote blue, and I've always had this intuition that's well, what about the other parties? What about the other guys? And I was always trained by family or other people, oh, well, a vote for them is a throwaway vote. A vote for them is a vote for Trump. A vote for them is just wasted. So I guess you can change all of our minds by letting us know your viewpoints and thoughts on freedom of speech and where you stand and what you think we deserve and how we should fight going forward.
Yeah. So first off, I am definitely feeling the love. So thank you guys for being so welcoming. And, thank you for being a mom in this world. God knows mothers are some of the strongest people we know out there. And in terms of, you're like, oh, I'm uneducated. Let me tell you right now, moms are some of the most educated people about what goes on in the economy. They see the actual impact every single day when they're trying to put food on the table for their kids, when they're trying to afford, the football camp or the ballet classes, braces for their kids. They feel the economic stress. People who are raising kids feel it. They just do, because of just the nature of raising kids is expensive. And so first off, I want to just empathize with you as a mom. We need more moms out there to be politically active. When it comes to free speech, I'm a free speech absolutionist. They say the pen is mightier than the sword. I sincerely believe that. There's a reason why the First Amendment comes first, even before the Second Amendment. And it's because speech, the ability to speak out, redress your government, worship the way you choose, live the way you choose, write what you want to write, say what you want to say, is the most powerful inherent right we have. It's the most powerful tool we have, because speech and the ability to organize and redress our government is the ultimate way we can make peaceful change without having to resort to the sword, right? And so as long as we have free speech, we have the ability to organize in a peaceful, nonviolent, resistant manner to have our voices heard. And when government removes that, when they say, as they say, when you make peaceful revolution and impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. And so we have to defend our free speech rights. We have to defend our right to be protesters and to get out there and make our voices heard. That's why I'm an activist candidate for president, because I started out in politics with a bullhorn in my hand, speaking out. And so I absolutely support the right of free speech. I support the right of people to be able to say what they want on platforms. I support the right of platforms to be able to decide what goes on their platforms, frankly. But I don't think the government needs to regulate TikTok. I don't think the government needs to shut down TikTok. I think it's a stupid thing for them to do. And you're right. If it was a good idea, they wouldn't have had it tuck it into some sort of bill that hit it and made it a poison pill, basically forcing people to vote for this, right? And this is what happens so much in Washington, D.C. The pork gets thrown in there. They put these little amendments in the bills that basically force members to have to vote for it or against it. It's playing politics. If you want to have a bill, you should put it to an up or down vote. It should be a one vote thing. And if you're going to add any amendments, it should be related to that kind of bill. Like farm bills can have agricultural amendments. Bills about TikTok could have, internet and online speech amendments, right? That's how this process is supposed to work. You're not supposed to have a farm bill that then they shove TikTok bans into. And so that is total BS. And what you're seeing is the BS that the government puts on us, because they would like to control the media that goes out there. And let's be real, the reason why this TikTok ban started happening and being discussed was because of the response to October 7th and people speaking up on this platform, specifically young people speaking up, and the government is scared of young people having a voice. And let me tell you right now, I'm planning, I think, on being in Washington, D.C. when Netanyahu comes to D.C. I will be right there along with the people protesting the actions of the Netanyahu government alongside young people and mothers just like yourself who need to get out and let their voices be heard. Now, as a libertarian,
I live there. I'll come cover it.
it'll be a lot. It'll be a lot of. And now I know why you're at the convention. It was a short drive for you.
There you go.
But I'm somebody who, when we hear the spoiler argument, first off, if you look at the approval ratings of Congress and the approval ratings of the people who sit in the White House that are always below 50%, below 20% for Congress, that's already spoiled. You can't spoil what's already rotted. And Washington, D.C. and the government is rotted to the core. And so when they say, oh, if you vote, you're spoiling the election, that's not true at all. First off, you're using your voice, your vote. 40% of the people don't even vote. And so if they get out and inspired to vote for a third party, they're not stealing anybody's vote. They're feeling inspired to vote. And I want people to vote for something, not just against Biden, not just against Trump, but for the concepts of liberty and self-ownership and your right to live your life as you see fit. And so when people tell me I'm a spoiler, I'm absolutely not. But what is a spoiler is plurality voting. Plurality voting that says whoever wins with the most votes, even if it's under 50%, wins. Because that has people under 50% of the under 50% of the vote getting elected to go represent 100% of their constituency. We need ranked choice voting. We need approval voting. We need anything that's better than plurality voting. And that will end the so-called spoiler effect. But guess what? I can't give that to you. I'm just Chase Oliver, a candidate. You know who can give you ranked choice voting? The Democrats and Republicans that sit in your state house right now. Demand it from them. Demand a better way to vote and tell them to quit spoiling every single election that they run, because they're fine spoiling it for you because it preserves their power. And they're fine blaming libertarians for being the spoilers when they really are, because they're the ones who can change it. They know we can't, and they know as long as they keep pushing it onto us and calling us the spoilers, they can get away with completely robbing you of your voice, your vote, and your ability to pick your first choice first and not have to settle for a lesser of two evil, because that's how you just get more and more evil. And so as long as they preserve that ability to do that, you are going to continue to see less and less quality candidates, as you're seeing with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There have to be better Democrats or Republicans even than those two, but we get stuck with less and less and less and less because of this lesser of two evil thinking.
Yeah, it's scary. And especially with this election coming up, it's like, oh, do we vote for the guy who wants to vote to take our voices away? Or do we want to vote for the guy who's going to take even more of our rights away, and screw everything up? So I feel like a lot of us are looking to you and to third-party candidates right now for hope.
Yeah, and I want you to know that even if we don't win this election, right, what we can do, if you vote Libertarian in your state right now, you can help secure ballot access to the Libertarian Party. That helps us be able to run candidates easier and not have to spend money on signature drives. You can win major party status. I won, the Libertarian Party of Iowa, they won major party status in Iowa, and that got me on the political soapbox stage as the first candidate for president who's not a Democrat or Republican to ever speak on that stage, because we worked hard and we earned the major party status. We can help local candidates down ballot win in local communities all across the country and start freeing up communities and start getting the government out of our lives and our local neighborhoods all across America. So these are the actionable wins that we can totally get without even winning the White House. We can build a foundation that will continue to compete against the two-party system and ultimately tear it down so we have a more representative republic, a more representative democracy. I would like to see 5 or 6 major parties in this country really being represented. But that doesn't happen until we tear down the two-party system. And the Libertarian Party is the best vehicle to do that. We're the third largest party. We have the most ballot access. And you have a millennial candidate who is sick and tired of 70-plus-year-old people controlling our lives. And I'm ready to be that messenger.
Thank you so much.
She mentioned one of the things that we have to choose to vote against, and one of the rally cries that's being used to get us to vote for the lesser of two evils. I asked you this question at the press conference after former President Trump's speech at the Libertarian Convention, but it has been requested repeatedly here today. So I am here to ask about your stance on medical freedom and your stance on bodily autonomy, and specifically, once again, women's bodily autonomy.
Yeah. So I believe in bodily autonomy. Your body is your body if you're doing it, if you're living your life in peace. And that includes the body autonomy, the right to reproductive health. I'm a libertarian. I'm pro make your own choice on just about everything. And that includes your right to an abortion. I am pro choice. I do believe that that is a right that women should have. The right of abortion should be sacrosanct up to the point of viability. Post viability, there's the health and the life of the mother to consider. And so I do sincerely believe in your right to choose across the board. In all 50 states. I don't support this state's rights to reduce bodily autonomy in state after state. No. Bodily autonomy clearly falls under the rights of each and every person, and your right to have medical privacy falls under the 14th Amendment, as Roe v. Wade said. I'm sorry that a conservative court disagreed because there are ideological differences, but the truth is that anybody can see that you should have the right to do what you want with your body. I'm a cisgender man. I'm never, ever going to get pregnant. I'm never going to have that question in my mind. But I would never rob a woman of her chance to make that choice for herself. And I believe that that is something that should be absolute. And, I do believe in the Hyde Amendment that federal funding shouldn't go to fund abortion, but I'm a libertarian. I don't believe federal funding should be funding a lot of things. And so that shouldn't really surprise anybody. But I also believe that absent that funding, don't worry, I believe Planned Parenthood will make up that fundraising gap very quickly. I do believe in the market's ability to respond to that need. And there is a lot of avenues to be able to help women get the abortions if they need them and they don't have the money to do it. And I support your right to do that in the free market. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Dustin, I don't know what your question is on. We didn't get to talk beforehand.
He's touched on a lot of different subjects, but I suppose that prison reform could be so specifically the war on drugs has been a 50-year failure of policy, has impacted millions of Americans' lives. There are a couple different ways that I want to go about this. I specifically am opposed to private prisons. I do not believe that there should be a profit motive to incarcerating American citizens. I believe that there is that we're looking at the most militarized police force that we've ever had here. As you pointed out, the monopoly of force that exists. It's never a politician or a billionaire who comes and enforces this law. It's always somebody who's got a stick. There has been a continuing militarization of police. How, through the ability to buy arms, retired military arms, what would you do to address these kind of programs, the ability to stop weapons of war from ending up on our streets, in our communities? I think a lot of people have that concern.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to both of those concerns. First, I'm going to do the war on drugs, and I'll move right into militarization of police. First off, I'm a criminal justice reform advocate. I think there needs to be reform at every level of our criminal justice system, from the first interaction you have with police, to your time in court, to the way prisons are interacted with, to your post-release. So I absolutely am in agreement with a lot of what you're saying. As far as the war on drugs, we need to decriminalize all drugs. We do. We need to decriminalize all drugs in the war on drugs as they currently exist. Treat addiction as a medical issue, and one that requires that mutual and direct aid from our communities to help those who are suffering from addiction. But ultimately, drugs need to be decriminalized because the violence that's created around the war on drugs is far worse than the actual drugs themselves. We saw this same thing happen when we had prohibition of alcohol, and it created Al Capone and the mafia. That's what we have. We have drug cartels in our streets who are causing violence all over the country. And the way you stop that is you remove their profit motive. You allow people to be able to purchase the things they want without fear of violence, without fear of the government reprisal, and ultimately help people through addiction. A nation that did this is the nation of Portugal. They had a huge heroin problem in the late 90s, early 2000s. They were the highest heroin rate in all of Western Europe. Because of this, they had super high rates of HIV and hepatitis. And instead of cracking down with the war on drugs, they decriminalized all drugs. And instead of trying to send people to jail, they advised them to go to rehab instead. Now what we see in Portugal is they have some of the lowest rates of IV drug use in the continent. They curbed new cases of HIV and hepatitis. And now they don't have as many people ODing because if you buy drugs in Portugal, you can take it to a pharmacy and they'll test it for you and tell you if there's fentanyl in it or not. And so there's a lot of great things about the decriminalization and then using mutual and direct aid and to create safety. So, ooh, sorry.
Hold on, that's not you. I let in a new guest. Justin, thank you. Go ahead, I apologize.
It's all good. And then as far as the criminal justice reform aspect of things, you're right about private prisons. I know it might sound crazy to hear libertarians say they oppose privatization of something, but ultimately prisons do not need to be something that has a profit motive. I do believe as a minarchist, there are a few things the government should do. Enforcing laws is part of that, and so is administering prisons. And that should be a cost to us as a society. That should cost us to have to do that. It should not be something that's pawned off to somebody to make a profit off of. And so this is why, because when we have a cost to throwing people in jail, maybe we think about maybe throwing them in jail is not the correct thing to do. So this is why I oppose private prisons. I oppose that profit motive. And then as far as other criminal justice reform aspects, I oppose things like qualified immunity for police that allows them to get out of being sued. I believe police officers should have to have liability insurance so that when they are sued and there is damages against them, it doesn't come out of the other city's budget. It comes out of those liability policies. And by the way, if you have if you become uninsurable, you become unhireable as a cop. So it's a free market motivator to get bad cops off the streets. You want to have an end to mandatory minimums that tie the hands of judges to treat cases on a case-by-case basis. That's what you want from judges. But right now, their hands are tied. You have these high mandatory minimums. And what does that do? That forces people into plea agreements. They actually go to jail for something maybe they didn't even do, but they're like, I'll take the lesser sentence instead of having to fight this 20 or 30-year mandatory minimum. And so we need to get rid of mandatory minimums. We need to get rid of the death penalty in this country. Far too many people have been put to death, and they have later been shown to be innocent. That's far too many. One is too many. But the fact that we keep seeing this over and over happen again and again and again is wrong. We need to join most of the rest of the world. If we are on the side of the death penalty, we're on the side of China, Saudi Arabia, Iran, a few others. If we're on the side of any of the death penalty, we're on the side of nearly every nation in Western Europe, nearly every nation in Latin America, and most nations even in Africa don't have the death penalty the way we do in this country. And so we need to get rid of it completely. And so I'm a true justice reform advocate. And one last thing I'll say on this. I believe in police reform. I'm a member of the Stop Cop City movement in Atlanta. I oppose the militarization of police. They're trying to build the biggest police militarization factory in my hometown. I join people across the left-right spectrum and oppose it. It's not left versus right. It's right versus wrong with Cop City. It's right versus wrong with the fact that we're militarizing our police. I was on the streets of Atlanta in 2020 when the National Guard rolled through and I felt the sting of the tear gas and the pepper spray. I know exactly what it feels like. So to those of you who have been on the street fighting for justice reform, I have been right in the street with you. I see what the militarized police are doing. I oppose it 100%. And guess what? I have a running mate who opposes all of those things too, but even more so, he's a former police officer. He's somebody who knows the wrongs from the inside of the department. So when he goes and speaks in front of police officers, they won't dismiss him like they do me. They'll just call me, he's some young activist. My running mate, Mike Termott, who's a former officer, can go in front of these cops and say, you need to hear this because you're making our communities more dangerous, you're making your job more dangerous, and you're harming our freedom. And he can say that with a straight face to people in front of him. I know from experience that these departments need to be reformed. And so I'm happy to be fighting a criminal justice reform fight. And I hope folks who do can join me in the streets and in the ballot box to fight for these issues.
Thank you so much. That was... You touched on so many issues there.
Thank you so much for that answer. That was fantastic, bro. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for teeing up a great question.
I will say that in the comments, that was a very, very popular answer. So definitely add that to the stump because that was very popular down in the comments just now. There was a whole lot going on in there. I don't have a clean segue to the next question.
Wait, Tiff, can I ask a quick question, Tiffany?
Yes,
on just to piggyback off of, by the way, thanks for being here, Chase. And I think it was you in the interview. I think it was at the Libertarian convention when somebody asked you, gun to your head, if you'd pick Trump or Biden. And I think you said the gun would go off.
The gun would go off. Absolutely. That is me. I believe there are two sides of the same authoritarian bird.
I think a lot of people would agree with that. But thank you for being here. My question, I wanted to piggyback off of a point that you brought up to Dustin's question, which is around the area of whether a particular industry should be privatized versus having it more government run. And this is coming from me. So right now I'm an independent journalist, but I have an MBA. I worked in management consulting for a number of years, helping corporations maximize profit. And so what I'm wondering about, and I think I see a lot of libertarianism in myself, right? I like liberty. I want the country that I live in to maximize freedom for as many people as possible. You probably would agree to that. So my question is, how do we maximize liberty for as many people as possible if, for a lot of corporations, which I think you said has a lot of control over how this country operates, they make decisions purely based on ROI. So if you think, I think Boeing would be a good example of a company that has made decisions based on ROI, and it's actually hurting, I would say, the liberties of people in this country. It's decreasing the safety of air travel, which isn't good for the infrastructure of the country. Speaking of infrastructure, you have these utilities that aren't being updated and maintained. So what role, and this is the part of the libertarianism that I can't quite square yet, so maybe you can help all of us, is that how do you make the decision of when things should be privatized and when the government needs to step in? Because I believe, you talk a lot about how everything is overregulated, but then if you don't have any regulations, then wouldn't the corporation just be allowed to do whatever they want to do, whatever they can get away with?
Yeah, so I support the base regulation against things like force, fraud, coercion, and theft. Violence obviously be one of those too. And so there has to be some basic rules of the road for business to be able to protect people. And really the best realm for that is in the judicial system. The fact that we need to be able to have people be able to sue these people when they're frauded against, coerced into signing a contract, abused by a corporation. And the best way to do that is to remove tort caps altogether. We need to remove the ability for the government to only slap people on the wrist. I say this about polluters all the time. If you knew that if you polluted in somebody's community, a citizen jury in that community will fine you the damages and there's no cap on it, you have a very, very big financial incentive to make sure you're not poisoning the air and water in those communities, because otherwise you're going to be put out of business very quickly by citizens who don't want their air or water poisoned. Look at the utility companies in places like Hawaii, where in Lahaina they were not properly carrying back brush. And of course, a quick brush fire happened, and now tons of people have lost their homes. They've still lost their homes nearly a year later from the fires. That could have been prevented, and I think citizens should be suing the utility companies who weren't properly maintaining their power lines and caused these things to happen to begin with. I think, again, if you remove the power of the tort cap and you let people ultimately sue as much as possible and get those maximum amount of damages, you're going to create an environment where the first thing a corporation asks other than return on investment is, are we going to get sued for this? Are we going to lose every bit of investment we just made into this if we don't do this the correct way? And it's a way to have citizens enforce compliance and enforce best behaviors among the free market. The free market has to be accountable to its customers, and the customers are the individual people. When you abuse them through force, fraud, coercion, or theft, or violence, you deserve to have your day in court. You deserve to make them pay. And I believe citizen juries, if they were no longer leashed by tort caps, would be able to do that. And I look forward to seeing these polluters get punished in court. I look forward to seeing people who abuse and steal people's wealth through coercion or through fraud and contracts being put out of business completely. Let their resources be completely liquidated, allocated to people who do more honest business, and we'll see a more prosperous and free society as a result.
James, I thought I was going to tee your question up, but you teed mine up. So
no, I think I teed yours because I think Tiffany's going through something like this. So I definitely
James knows exactly what's about to happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was a really good answer in theory, but in our current circumstance, I happen to know that it's untenable as we exist, even with tort reform or a repeal of tort reform. Because the reason I got sort of famous on this app is I was on the cover of the New York Times and the New York Post after a private equity firm spent $11 million to destroy my small business just to make an example out of me to scare tons of other small business owners. They didn't want any money. They didn't actually want to stop me from doing anything. They just wanted to hurt me over and over again. And they use arbitration to do it. Now, the problem with arbitration is that it has become so rampant from where it started. The Federal Arbitration Act was created to help two giant companies that engage in shipping get a judge that understood maritime law that they could both afford to decide a case. And it has been so broadly expanded by our Supreme Court so that now, if you, Chase Oliver, go down to Best Buy and buy yourself a washing machine, The warranty inside the box you don't get to see before you buy it includes an arbitration clause you are held to. And those arbitrations, they say it's to cut costs. I promise you it is not. My legal debt right now is just shy of $1 million. They've spent over like $11 million. I was in court this morning where the opposing counsel, his argument was, Your Honor, it doesn't matter if the arbitrator follows the law because the Federal Arbitration Act says he can make up his own law. So it doesn't matter if he violated the law in his rulings against her. It's not an excuse to vacate the arbitration. And the other thing that's happening in arbitrations that are being forced on people in every facet of American life, like the average American is beholden to no less than 85 to 100 arbitration clauses at any moment they don't know about. But a lot of people on this app happen to know for a fact that in my arbitration, they used an arbitrator to force me to have an abortion against my will. It had nothing to do with my case. It was just to punish me. They wanted me produced faster for a deposition. And they got a judge to allow that in an arbitration because there's no law in an arbitration. And none of us get a say in whether or not we're forced there. So if the Federal Arbitration Act exists, all of these companies can hide their conduct because every one of these arbitration clauses is attached to a non-disparagement clause and a confidentiality agreement. So nobody's out there talking about bad conduct and the free market is blind to it. So what could it exist without a repeal of the Federal Arbitration Act, and how?
Yeah, so much of what you're saying is, and as you described it, is that the Supreme Court has expanded the power of arbitration. Much like they did with qualified immunity, they pulled that out whole cloth and created this doctrine. That is not the purpose of the judiciary. The judiciary is not to create new laws. They're to interpret laws as they currently exist. Arbitration does exist for a reason. There's good uses for it, particularly amongst, individual contracts, proprietorships, partnerships that need to have some sort of dispute resoluted so you don't have to go to court. But that should really be done, inter-company. That shouldn't be one company and another company really having to come together and, or you as an individual being forced into arbitration when you didn't consent to that. One of the things I think why arbitration is so often used, and as you said, saves time and money, because it takes a long time to get in front of a judge right now in today's world. Why? We have an over-criminalized society. We have so much stuff in our criminal code that our courts are just backed up out the wazoo, and it takes years for some people to even get a court date. And particularly civil court is backed up like crazy. And so people just turn to arbitration. These corporations say, oh, it's just better to do this. It'll help you out in the long run. When you get hired at a job, they force you to sign an arbitration clause to get the job. I think that's, ultimately, philosophically, it's legal to say that, hey, they can decide the terms of these things. But I think we need to be looking at ways to remove non-consented arbitration from our lives. Like if when you're buying the washing machine from Best Buy, they can say, hey, it's $50 cheaper if you sign an arbitration clause so that if there's a problem, you won't have to go to court. Okay, well, I'll sign it if you want to. I don't have to worry about my washing machine. I'll just sign off on it. But you should have to sign off on these things. You should not be forced into arbitration without consent, knowledge of what you're doing. And this is part of the increased transparency we need to see in our society. So much of what is done behind closed doors. It's done behind mountains of legalese. So the average person doesn't understand it. Just look at the terms of agreement clause on the phone that we're all TikToking on right now. We all click, yeah, we just agree to the terms. We're not going to read 900 pages of crap. Well, guess what in there? It's an arbitration clause. If you have a problem with your product in Apple, guess what? You're going to have to go through an arbitrator most of the time, or through Android. These kinds of things are wrong because we are a consent culture. We believe in the power of the right of people to consent to behaviors, to consent to things, and that's central to the core of an actual free market and not a corporate captured market. And so I don't know exactly what reforms would need to take place, but it's clear based on your story and probably the story of a lot of other people that there's a lot of abuses happening via the means of arbitration. And the idea that they can force you to have an abortion is just ghastly. It's freaking horrible. Like, good God. Like, that was not the thing I thought you were going to say when you said they forced you to do something. Seriously, that's horrible. And secondly, the idea that they can work outside of what's legal with the constitutional bounds. This is the same thing that causes police abuses via qualified immunity. And we thought we were doing the right thing. We thought we weren't violating the Constitution. So I guess because we were ignorant of the law, we should not be able to, be charged for this. Well, it's essentially the same thing when you're talking about, the ability to capture the marketplace like you have with arbitration. And that's just, oh God, that your story is horrible. Like not your story is horrible, but the conditions of what you had to go through is awful. And I think more people need to hear this. I'm glad you're telling your story. And ultimately, you're right. We need to do something about this. I don't know the exact answer right now. But I tell you right now, I empathize with you completely. And if there's a solution that can maintain the right of the free market, but also protect consumers, I'm all for it.
Okay. I really appreciate it, because I also appreciate candidates saying they don't know all the answers. A lot of people, candidates included, really don't understand this is happening. Like, one of the worst cases that I'm involved in right now, I'm being subpoenaed to testify, which actually is a big part of why this company targeted me, is there's a trampoline park all across the US. And they chose to pull harness checkers off their zip lines, and dozens of children across the United States fell 30 feet to concrete floors. And when they signed their kids in at the birthday party, none of them saw the arbitration agreement, the non-compete or the non-disparagement clause, and the confidentiality agreement. So nobody in the press can talk about it, and none of these people can talk to the press. And so in a free market, the free market would see that conduct and they would respond. They would boycott, they would rage. But nobody sees it because of the arbitrations. Nobody sees children are being harmed.
Yeah, that's and again, that speaks to the lack of transparency. The more people can see what's going on, the more they can respond to it via citizen action, boycott, protest, all these things. But if we're not seeing what's happening, it's very hard for us to respond to those things. And so you're absolutely right there. And as far as not knowing all the answers, nobody could know everything all at once. Like, hey, I wasn't made aware until Spike Cohen, who ran for vice president 4 years ago for the Libertarian Party. He uncovered a ton of stuff that was happening to the Georgia DFACs, where they were stealing families away from kids, accusing parents of abuse who weren't abusing their kids who were having medical problems, having to fight for years to get their kids back. And so I wasn't even aware of those things until somebody contacted that, Spike's organization, and they started, sounding the alarm. And now, I see how huge of a deal that is in my home state. And now I'm joining a coalition of people to demand that our Governor Brian Kemp do something about it to save the kids. They talk about protecting the children so much, but let's protect the children from government abuses at the very least. I mean, that should be their first job as members of the government. So I just want you to know, like, the more transparency we have in our lives, the more transparency we can see what's going on, not just from government, but in business, the better we'll be able to respond to it. And again, quit over criminalizing victimless crimes, and let's put those real crimes of fraud and abuse and violence and harm. Let's put those in front of a judge, and not, victimless crimes like, owning a dime bag.
Yeah, I know we only have you for a few more minutes. We have some questions in the comments. One that everybody was very supportive of is, how do we get you on a debate stage?
Well, first and foremost, you can right now email CNN, because they're the ones who are in charge of this first debate. They have said one of their prerequisites is that you have to be on enough state ballots to win 270 electoral votes. We're currently on 37 states and growing as a Libertarian Party. And really, I think Americans are demanding seeing something other than just Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And we have to let our voices be heard. Share these videos on TikTok. Demand at CNN and say, I would like to see Chase Oliver in the debate. I would like to see more people involved in the debate. And I'm going to be in Atlanta during the day of the debate, just on the off chance they do invite me. But if they don't, I'll be right outside protesting outside the door with citizens, making sure that they know there are more options and CNN is just preventing them from hearing them. And so, I'm ready, willing, and able to do everything I can to try to get on the debate stage. And I encourage you to reach out to the debate organizers, in this case, to CNN in this first one. If we don't get on the first debate, there's another debate in, I believe it's September or October. I think ABC is running that one. And hopefully by then we'll be high enough in the polls where we're just undeniable, able to get in there. And of course, join our campaign. Help us spread the message at our campaign. Go to the website, votechaseoliver.com. Sign up for our email list. Sign up to be a volunteer. If you felt properly inspired by me during this TikTok live, feel free to give me money. I'm not going to say no to that either. But really what we want is we want more and more people to hear about this campaign. Your donations help with that. You volunteering help with that in your own neighborhood, to be able to knock on doors, text bank, phone bank, make sure your community knows about the Libertarian Party choice. Make sure they know about Chase Oliver and Mike Turant in 2024. And, absent that, we're just going to have to do what we can to get our message out there. I'm going to be part of the free and equal debates coming up in July at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. Jill Stein of the Green Party.
I was just invited to that one.
Yeah, the Constitution Party candidate's going to be there. A few other candidates have been invited, including Biden and Trump. And of course, they're probably not going to show up because they're too cowardly to answer questions that aren't rehearsed by a major media source and, basically pre-scripting everything for them. But, here's holding out hope. But
let's not forget no live audience with a delay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. They don't have a live audience either. And that's because I believe if we did have a stage with a live audience and more than two candidates, they would get booed out of the building, and anybody else would just get cheered wildly.
Yep.
And so, but you know what? I don't need an audience. You guys can be the audience. Get me on the debate stage, and you can TikTok live and live stream it as it happens, and help cheer us along.
We're going to go with a very not serious question. What's serious to one person who really wants to ask it? Chef Angry Jesus wants to know if you're coming to Baton Rouge for LSU v. Bama.
I don't know if I'm coming to Baton Rouge for LSU v. Bama. I love SEC football. I myself am a Tennessee fan, but half the country's going to hate me for that. But here's the truth. I will say this about LSU. They are the best tailgaters in football. If you want good food before a football game, if you want to party with some people, go party with the Cajuns down in Baton Rouge, because, man, I'll tell you, an LSU game is intense with the food. So if I can make it down there, yes, save some boudin for me, man.
Okay. And Justin, do you have a short question? We're just about out of time, but you came up and I didn't expect you, so I didn't build it into the time. What did you want to ask?
You're muted.
I really didn't hear is how do you feel about political action committees?
Oh, there you go.
All right. You mind mute real quick? There we go.
Oh, sorry.
Now, as far as PACs, I do believe that PACs have a right to organize and help fundraise for candidates. I don't take any super PAC money. I've seen people ask me about APAC in the comments. No APAC money. I don't think I'm ever going to get a check from them based on the way I responded to the Gaza question earlier. That's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to wait up at night for that. But in reality, I don't go and shop for PAC money. I don't beg for PAC money. I'm not saying, hey, I need to sell out to you so that way I can get a few more commercials. If PACs want to support me because they like the things that I'm saying, they like the things they're hearing from me, by all means, spend all the money and support me you want, because I can't coordinate with you anyway. But I do think money is someone's ability to have their voice be heard. And, ultimately, I think as long as, really, here's the best thing. This would be the best case scenario. Remove all PACs, remove all super PACs, remove all that stuff, and just remove the spending cap that you can contribute to a candidate and be as transparent about it, right? Like, hey, if somebody gives Joe Biden $1 million, you best believe that Joe Biden's doing something for that $1 million, right? If somebody gives, and as long as it's transparent, hey, that oil executive just gave Donald Trump $5 million. I'm betting Donald Trump's going to push pro-oil propaganda if he gets elected. So at least as long as it's transparent, we know where the money is. That's a hell of a lot better than the super PAC system we have now, where there's tons of dark money and we just don't know who it is that's supporting these candidates. That's a little bit more worrisome to me. So while I believe you should be able to contribute all the money you want, the best system would just say, give that directly to the candidate, let it be known in the FEC report so we know who's buying and paying for them, like NASCAR logos on a jacket, and just go from there. And I guarantee you're going to see a lot of small dollar donations from me. You're going to see a lot of individuals donating for me, and not a lot of these giant firms that are completely in the pocket, or that have Congress completely in their pocket, rather. I'm going to fight for the individual small businesses, the mom and pops, the regular average working Joes, because I am one. I've actually had to live paycheck to paycheck in my life, and so I'm going to fight for folks who've had to do that.
I am going to take this opportunity because I know you've already stayed a couple minutes longer, and I know she told me we're super busy this evening. Plus, it's late in New Hampshire, but everybody in the comments, you want to know how to support him, go follow him. Let's start there. Please, click on his little link up there and follow Chase Oliver for president. You guys should be tuning in to his information. You should repost it if you agree with it, right? And I can say that the comments have been, I warned everybody that we're going to be really surprised when you came on tonight. So many people mistake libertarianism for Republican light, when what they really should be understanding is that every time a libertarian candidate has gained momentum, the Republicans absorb the convenient parts of your platform. And that's why they mistake it that way. But it's not enough to absorb a convenient part and claim that that's what you are. And so when I was trying to explain to people before this started that they would be shocked by much of the libertarian platform, I don't think they believed me, but here we are.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the chance to answer some questions. I don't want this to be the last time I come on a TikTok live with you and others. I do hope that folks give us a follow, check out the content that we have, and spread the word, because I'm under the age of 70. I speak in complete sentences. I'm not a convicted felon, and I believe you're right to live your life as you see fit. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-immigrant. I'm pro-justice reform. I'm anti-war, and I'm ready to speak for a new generation who's sick and tired of having the same people controlling their lives that were controlling their lives 20 years ago plus. Let's bring some new blood in. Let's bring some new ideas in, and let's shake things up and scare the hell out of the two-party system while we're doing it.
We would love to have you and Mike back. We are trying to do these weekly. We're trying to build and really draw attention to bringing candidates to constituents and cut out that filter of the mainstream media that is so conveniently always in service of the people that they serve and the billionaires that own them. So we are grateful for you being here. We thank you so much, and we would love to have you back.
Well, I'm going to say the same thing goodbye that I say to everybody. I wish everybody who's watching and everybody who's here on this panel a life of peace, love, and liberty to all of you. God bless.
Thank you so much, Chase. It was so nice to have you in.
Bye.
And with that, we just concluded our interview with Chase Oliver, a Libertarian candidate for President 2024. I hope all of you enjoyed having him on. We're going to stay here and have a little bit of a conversation for a few minutes. I hope everybody comes back. We would love to have Chase back. We do have Jill Stein coming on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, again, just like this one. And we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joining us next Thursday. So nobody was more surprised than me when the presidential candidates showed up when I asked. But now I'm never going to be okay with anyone saying no, because we know it's possible, right? Why should any of us be okay with someone saying no to just coming down and working with their constituents and coming to the people that they're asking to vote for them? I think that's what we should be demanding. I hope you guys follow every creator that's been on here tonight. I'm going to keep the conversation going for just a little bit. And I'm so grateful that everybody tuned in. We had a very, very good chat going, and I'm grateful everybody was super respectful, because you know that's my only line in the sand. I'm grateful you guys were respectful to each other. I'm going to change this back to the Brady Bunch, and we'll bring some folks up if we can. Hold on. I'm getting better at this. There we go. Brady Bunch in 3, 2, 1. There we go. All right, guys. So for everybody who's already up here, what'd you think?
That was awesome. I had a great time. My phone is about to die. Thank you so much for letting me be
Dustin, I was so glad you came in. Thanks for joining us. I hope you're back on Sunday.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great evening.
You too, Dustin. Thanks for coming in.
It was really. I hate that.
Hold on. Who's echoing?
Thanks, guys.
No. Once again, it's just so awesome that, presidential candidates come to us and we're hearing what they have to say instead of what we think the media could perhaps be wanting them to say, or, scripted stuff that just gets stuffed down our throats so easily. There was a lot of people in the comments, and I just want you guys to know that I saw you and I was trying to engage and answer. And I wrote down all your questions so that if we have another chance, we can always ask next time.
Yep, absolutely. This will not be the last time, hopefully, that Chase Oliver comes on here. And we're looking forward to having his vice presidential candidate, Mike Termott, in here as well. I'm going to be posting my interview with Mike Termott from the Libertarian Convention. And he is the VP nominee for the Libertarian Party. So I'll be posting that the next day or two, so you guys can kind of see where he falls on some issues. There's very little difference from Chase on some things, but he has a different perspective coming from the field of law enforcement. And I had a really great conversation with him, and he was super open to just talking to anybody that walked up to him at the convention. I thought it was great. James, what did you think? You interview all kinds of people.
Well, yeah. Well, one thing I'll say is that I think it was obviously great for him to come on and answer these questions. And my reaction to libertarianism, because like I said, I like some of it, the stuff that he talks about with liberty, and I mean, who's not for liberty?
Right.
I think my main pushback on the liberty is, how do we pursue liberty in a corrupted system, right? Because the stuff that he's talking about, in response to your question, my question, it's like, that sounds really good, right? Transparency and all this stuff, but if everything's so corrupted already, how do we fix that? And that's the part that I would be curious to dive into more, right? Is like, what mechanisms are you going to can you put in place to get the corruption out, so then we can get to a more idealistic state, that what he's describing.
So let's try to hone in on some of that. I've got to say, there were at least 8 issues I wanted to get to, but we got to a lot. I kind of told everybody Chase is an excellent orator, and he's very, very quick. He doesn't take time. He knows how he feels about an issue, and it just kind of comes out. We have a bunch of people asking to come up in the box, so I'm going to bring somebody up. I'm going to bring up a couple people that have been waiting and waiting and waiting. Let's see. I'm just going to go in order because we have like a bunch of people asking to come in. Let me see who's up here. Kelly, you've been asking to come in for a minute. Let's bring you up. We'll just kind of see where it's going to go.
One of the things about deregulation is we always get into a conversation about virtue, ethics, morals. And I don't think any institution that large should be forcing ethical behavior, which is essentially what a lot of people are asking for. You know, we're going to be legislating and enforcing ethical behavior. And I think that legislation is really like bumper bowling. You throw the ball down the lane, you know it's not going to go in the gutter because of measures of accountability, but it's really just a framework that people operate in. And I think one of the libertarian principles of elevating the opportunity for economic mobility improves the quality of people's lives, first and foremost, which I would say happier people would be more ethical en masse, because what we're talking about there is kind of deeply philosophical, you know? That particular question is, how do you keep people in check? And you can't force the ethics. So it's inspiration over decades. Put the parameters in place and then elevate the people so that we're not all miserable and suffering.
I apologize, guys. I'm going to turn the light on. It just got super dark here, and it got really weird with my lighting. Bear with me 1 minute. Ooh, I got super bright. Oh my goodness, I wasn't ready. It was light when I started, it got dark, and then it got really dark. Chef, welcome to the Brady Bunch.
Thank you for having me. I was actually had the privilege of meeting Chase Oliver back in December. He actually knew me from my TikTok content. I actually originally got into TikTok to campaign for the last Libertarian Party presidential candidate, Joe Jorgensen, and ended up having a talent for it because I had just left acting after getting tired of the drama in the industry, and ended up volunteering with the Libertarian Party for the first time and getting actively involved. I had agreed with a lot of libertarian principles over the years, and I was getting tired of, I've never was satisfied or trusted either the Republicans or the Democrats. But I first started seeing myself as a libertarian around 2016 with Gary Johnson's campaign for president. So that's when I first got into the libertarian movement. And like I said, during the last campaign, I got on TikTok to campaign for Joe Jorgensen, ended up gaining a bit of a following. So now here I am. So I got to meet Chase Oliver back in December at walk-ons here in Baton Rouge. And he jokingly offered me his VP candidate, which I turned down because I already planned on running for Metro Council here in Baton Rouge to help support ballot access. And I also plan on, and also I'm not old enough to run for vice president yet. I'm only 32. My first opportunity to do anything on that level is going to be in 2028. So I had no choice but to turn it down. But
we are big fans of anybody running for office in your communities. We are impacted so much more every single day by the laws and the legislatures and the state governments than we are at the federal level. So many people think that the federal elections are what's most important. But most of our day-to-day lives are governed by local elections. So we super recommend and we super support independent candidates running and third-party candidates running in local government elections. It's so smart.
Yeah. I actually live in a neighborhood just south of LSU called Tigerland, which about a year and a half ago gained some notoriety for all the wrong reasons. I'm trying to remember the name of the young lady, but she went out to one of the bars out here. It's a major party district. And she ended up going home with the wrong crowd and sadly lost her life off of Burbank Drive. And that's gained some notoriety out here. And one of the things I want to focus on is, like Chase discussed, eliminating victimless crime. And we already have a violent crime epidemic here in Baton Rouge, which is weird because Louisiana at large is a bright red Republican state, but Baton Rouge is a solid blue dot within that state. I guess that's the case with a lot of major cities within red states. But so I kind of been stuck seeing the worst of the worst in both sides of the extremes my entire life. And So on the state level, you got the tough on crime Republicans, and on the local level, you got the spineless Democrats who just let anybody and everybody just go through the court system, not even thinking, okay, maybe we should prioritize violent crimes and let the victimless crimes go free. It's like they're not even paying attention to who's committing what crime. And that's what I want to focus on. I want to eliminate victimless crime, including decriminalizing all drug use, completely legalizing marijuana because should have never been illegal to begin with. But something I didn't really get to hear him comment on, and I'm not sure how I can say this, but let's just say Chase and I both agree on one thing that nobody else talks about, and that is decriminalizing spicy work between consenting adults.
We actually had a conversation about that today. I'm just going to say I grew up in Nevada, where it's the only place in the United States where spicy work is decriminalized in some areas. Yeah. And I'm going to say in those areas, those women have benefits. They have mandatory testing. They have support. They don't have abusive PIMPS.
I worked at I actually was working at a strip club for 3 years prior to meeting Chase. It's actually a rather notable club because it's one of the clubs Stormy Daniels started at. And it's also got a new.
Made it interesting.
Yeah. Also another dancer. Well, she's not a dancer anymore, but Indica Flower also started off at the club I was at, if y'all know who that is. But yeah, I'm one of the few people who really makes an effort to say, hey, we should decriminalize this line of work because, like he said, prohibition of alcohol didn't stop people from drinking. It just led to the rise of the mafia. The war on drugs hasn't stopped people from doing drugs, but it has led to the rise of the cartels. On a similar note with spicy work, it's not stopping people from engaging in that type of lifestyle. Nope. But it is leading to a rise of trafficking, and that's what we need to focus on. We can decriminalize what goes on between 2 or more consenting adults, and it would be a lot easier for those who consent to that lifestyle to coordinate efforts with law enforcement if they can just speak up when they see something funny going on. Because we see it all the time. I got followed home from the club one night.
Real quick, Chef, I'm going to read from the Libertarian platform for 2024. So 2.10 in their platform says, the Libertarian Party supports the decriminalization of all prostitution of an adult age and free will decision-making, right? We assert the right of consenting adults to provide sexual services to clients for compensation and the right of clients to purchase services from consenting sex workers. I never used to think, I grew up fancying myself a serious feminist, right? Yes. I was like, I believe in feminism. I am a feminist. March, yes, absolutely. Rosie the Riveter, get me a headband, right? Like I was ready. And one day, I was only about 22, and I met a woman that worked at the Moonlight Bunny Ranch in Pahrump, Nevada. And I was like, oh, and I'm going to tell you, I'm ashamed I said this. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed I ever said that. She goes, why? Do you know how much money I make? I said, no. And she goes, more than you and everyone you know. And I said, okay. And she says, let me ask you, do you think you're a feminist? And I said, I am a feminist. She goes, how can you say that a woman should be able to make her own choices and tell me I can't make mine?
Yeah. Well, what's funny, that's where I got the name Chef Angry Jesus, because I didn't work as a bouncer at the club. I was the cook. And by default, the term chef actually originated from a term that meant head, an old French word. So the title was given to whoever was head of the kitchen. And because I was the only cook at the time, well, the only cook at all, I was technically a chef, and they called me Angry Jesus because I would always get slammed with tickets within the last hour before we're closed.
We all worked in food service here. We understand where it came from, I promise.
But for some reason, when you're at a club, it's not busy around the regular times, like 6 to 7 around dinner time. No, everybody decides, oh, y'all got a kitchen here? It's about to close? Oh, shoot, let me order the entire menu.
Chef, we have 2 new guests down here that haven't gotten to speak yet.
Oh, yeah,
Kelly,
sorry.
welcome. I know you were waiting so long. I had so many people ahead of you. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's
Hey,
okay.
really quick, sorry.
I've
I
enjoyed
have
it.
to
Go ahead.
one second. I just have to drop, but I just wanted to say thank you for to Tiffany for organizing all of this, and we're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep bringing on candidates, and thank you everybody for asking great questions, contributing.
Thanks,
I think this is
James.
what democracy is all about. Thank you, and Kelly. Sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'll see you Sunday,
That's
James.
okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, James. I really enjoyed listening to everyone speak. I think I follow everybody practically here. I'm in Virginia, not too far from you, Tiffany. So I see the disparity between the rich and the poor quite sharply. And a lot of it is government employees. It's
Yep.
contractors, it's politicians. Loudoun County is where they all live. And it's gotten a lot of heat in
I'm
the
in the
press.
county just Appalachia of that, and I'm in
Oh,
Frederick County,
okay.
Maryland. And let
Yeah,
me tell you, we see it. And my husband
yeah.
is a federal employee, but I have a friend who's a federal defense contractor, and she makes more money than the president.
Mm.
Like,
Well, yeah. Well, what I didn't think of this question until after he left, but what I'd like to propose is just uh, a question that really hits where America is, and that is, what do you say to the population who has already checked out of the US? Because they're, in all the corners of our, truth finding, there's one little particular one that I came across, and that's the amount of people leaving the US. And, you get frustrated because everywhere you look, there's censorship now, especially since the ban happened. But, there's a lot of people who are just that angry. And if they don't have the means, they're busy talking about how to get the means to leave. And they're serious to the point where they're promoting other countries. And not because they're a salesman for anything, they're just saying it's that much better. And it doesn't take much, honestly, I don't think, because of all of the corruption. And so, I kind of was with James in his takeaway from some of the answers. While they were good, I'm a little bit older than you guys. So I feel like, in the practical sense, there's a lot of people who really need to visualize what the steps are going to be to get us out of this hellhole. And if we don't actually get a good visualization from an answer, I think we're all going to be left with, is that going to be enough?
yeah.
So that's really what I'm afraid of is, okay, we get someone else in there who sees this and that, who agrees with this and that, but, to honestly overturn Congress and the Senate, that there's a lot of corruption there, and there's very few good people left, I feel like. So it's just not going to be a small task at all. And as you pointed out, Tiffany, in one of your lives before, with Trump and his inexperienced staffers and people under him, he really, that was a deficit for him. And, these newbies coming on who I'd love to support just because they're all for the same great things, which I love. But, we really do need someone who's knowledgeable enough to know all the corners that these creeps lurk in that are protected under this, that, and the other. And just as well as anybody, those protections are there and buried deep until you get bit by them. Only then do you find out, oh, they get to walk away from this. So it's, I'm just that American who needs to have the visualization crystal clear. So that's just the point that I wanted to bring up to, any future candidates too that you get to interview.
I have added it to my list, and I carry my little book of questions with me everywhere I go. I've got 3 of them in my bag right now. We are going to have Jill Stein on this coming Sunday, and I hope you're back for that conversation. And then we'll have Our conversation with Robert F. Kennedy next week is on a specific subject. So we're asking for questions on this, but it's on the sickening of America. And we're specifically going to have some homesteaders on. We're going to have some mental and physical health practitioners on. We're going to be having on people that specialize in agriculture and people that specialize in in big pharma. And we really want your questions on this issue. We're going to be talking about the chronic disease epidemic and the obesity epidemic, the diabetes epidemic. So, and we're going to talk about how our food companies and big ag are working together with pharma, because they're all owned by the same damn 5 companies, and we all know it.
That's right.
To
I'm
keep
going
us
to be
all
all over
sick,
that.
overworked, overtired, and unable to engage and do something about it. And I think we're all just about done with that.
I have to
Yeah.
say, I love that you said the visualization of it, because anytime there's a plan for a city, like a revitalization plan, an economic plan, the most essential part of that is the visualization of what the town is going to look like after we renovate and bring back Main Street, or we revitalize the pier or the downtown shopping district, so on and so on. There's always a clear vision of why it is that we're doing this and how it's going to happen. And I think for so long, we have not seen a true positive vision for this country being sold that seems realistic. We've only seen the inefficiencies and the unethical behaviors and the corruption. It's just one thing after another. And I think we've forgotten that no matter what happens to this country, some people in the comments are saying, I'm out of here, I'm bailing, that's fine. But no matter where you go, civilization is an active process. Being a citizen is an active process. We all find our little way to contribute to the greater good. And I feel like that apathy is from a sense of a loss of power. We feel like nothing we do matters, but pretty much everything we do matters in the realm of a civilization. We just need better leaders to paint better pictures of what it could look like in 10 or 20 years.
And
I agree.
word.
Carolyn and Tony,
Beautiful pictures. Stick to their word.
Carolyn, I'm going to come down here real quick, and then I'm going to come back to you, okay? So I don't know if, I assume you're Sheila, but you could be Frodo, so I don't want to assume. Welcome to the Brady Bunch Box. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I was so happy to see Chase on here because I've been following him for a while. Big libertarian.
Okay.
So less government, less taxes, more freedom for everybody. The one thing I just wanted to pop up and say real quick, and this is why I raised my hand. I wasn't trying to be rude or impatient.
No,
I just
we're
don't
glad
have that
you're
much
here.
time. Thank you. And thank you for hosting him. That's amazing. And I love that he did that because keeping in touch with the people, it humanizes them, right?
Yes. Well,
Makes them relatable.
it gives us access to the people most people don't know this. I'm just going to say it. But until like 80 years ago, it wasn't even 80 years ago, until JFK was assassinated, you could just walk up to the White House and knock on the door, literally. And just 20 years before that, every morning, the halls of the White House were lined with people waiting to access their politicians, and so was Capitol Hill.
That's how it should be.
Your house.
That is how it should be. We pay them. They work for us. And I don't know when we got it twisted, but the one thing I wanted to say, in addition to thank you, was please, 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 please listen to what he said and write CNN. We have got to get that man on the debate stage.
I agree.
He doesn't stand a chance if we don't. And I actually do have some hope if we can get him on the debate stage, because can you even imagine what that debate would look like with the 2 current candidates? I mean, he would put them to they would get booed off the stage. Somebody in the
comments. Just a couple years ago, Marianne Williamson was on the debate stage, right? Just a couple years ago, the independent candidates were on the debate stage. It's only now that the process is so manipulated, so vulgar, right?
And I was surprised.
They're not even bothering to lie to us anymore. They're like, we don't give a shit what you want to see, because you take what we give you, and that's the access you get.
That's a CNN decision?
No, that was a Biden
decision?
And a Trump decision. They agreed together.
Yeah. Well, one thing I think might be able to happen, even if we can't get him onto the stage, Trump seems temperamental enough to where you might be able to bait him into a debate.
I've invited Trump here. We haven't heard
Yeah.
back, but I invited
No,
him.
I
I
think
told him
we.
he's missing out.
I think Biden has a handler that keeps him away from stuff like that, but Trump
Yeah.
is so off the cuff, you could probably bait him into showing up to a debate.
Yeah.
Hey, just if you get under his skin, but not sure if anybody's going to try that angle.
Yeah.
Might be a little too risky.
It's at a point right now where I don't hate Trump and I don't hate Biden. I'm just done with both of them. People want me to hate one or the other. Everyone in here wants me to hate somebody. I don't. One of the things that's being said over and over again down here is, are elections fair and do they matter? Someone's posted that like 10 times. And I am not going to say elections are fair, but I am definitely going to say they matter. And the reason we know they matter is because if they didn't matter, Trump could never have won. Nobody on election day, and I say this all the time, was more shocked that Trump won than Donald Trump. Nobody. He hadn't even rented a victory location. They were just at campaign HQ in a regular ballroom at like the Hilton. The man owns the nicest hotels in the world. He wasn't at Mar-a-Lago. He didn't rent out a stadium like he does on his rallies. The man was going to bed when they called Ohio. Okay? Nobody was more shocked than Trump. All right? And so if an election didn't matter, if an outsider could not win, that could never have happened. And anybody that says to the contrary is lying, or they're willfully ignorant, period. I understand campaigns. My husband understands campaigns. And I worked for a senator for years in PR and understanding how to spin elections, okay? And I am telling you, nobody was more shocked than him. Not even Hillary. Not even her. So elections do matter. And, did Trump get threatened? There's a question in the comments. Did Trump get threatened not to say anything in regard to Julian Assange's brother? I don't care if that's what happened. So a lot of you guys may have seen my video that's been going around. It's viral right now on X, where I was at the Libertarian Convention. I was in the front row seated next to Gabriel Shipton, who who only attended. First of all, he hates Trump because Trump, I don't know if he hates, I don't know if that's the right word. He is not a fan of Trump because Trump was in office when the charges were filed against his brother, which seems so vulgar when you consider the fact that Trump only really won probably because of the WikiLeaks leak of all of Hillary's emails and the DNC communications over Bernie, right? They leaked that the DNC sacrificed Bernie. That is very likely why he won. Not entirely. There's an entire middle swath of America that finally felt themselves represented by somebody that talked like them and to them, right? But when the never Hillarys that were on the Bernie train, they probably still would have voted maybe with the DNC. They probably would not have voted for Trump ever. But I know personally 4 never Hillarys that marched all the way to Philadelphia, cast their electoral votes for Bernie long after they said he wasn't allowed to win and he conceded. They still went. They spent their own money. And then the next month, they voted for Trump because Hillary was not an option at that point. They voted for Trump. So every time someone looks at me and says, if you vote for a third party, it's going to be your fault when he wins. Don't give me that shit. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. I will vote for who inspires me. But I do know this. If you're going to blame me instead of looking at the DNC and the way they stacked the deck against Bernie, if you're going to blame me instead of the DNC for not primarying Biden, then we don't have a conversation to have. Because I'm not going to talk to somebody that won't look at the reality of what happened and instead is looking for a scapegoat. I'm not interested in being anybody's scapegoat.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of ironic because the DNC did to Bernie what the GOP did to Ron Paul back in 2012. Like Ron Paul probably could have beaten Obama. He was. I mean, he's still considered the poster child of libertarianism in America to a lot of people. So the Libertarian Party would not even. Yeah, the Libertarian Party probably wouldn't even be what it is now if the GOP had ran him in 2012, because Libertarians probably would have registered to Republican. Instead, they jumped ship, or those that were never going to vote Republican anyway just said, yeah, saw that coming, and just decided to register with the actual Libertarian Party. And that's why it's grown so much.
Are you talking about Barry Goldwater?
Oh, go ahead. Huh?
Are you talking about Barry Goldwater when you talk about Goldwater?
So there's the patron saint of libertarianism. Hold on, let me pull up like the statement. There's a statement on it. Let me go to Tara Lynn and I'll come back to you. I want to pull up the statement.
Okay, I'm gonna hop off now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Girl, I didn't have anything specific to say. I was just chiming in on Tony's comment about a vision. I'm like, man, you're not wrong. I also feel like at this point, if I were to hear the vision that I felt resonated, I'm like, they're not going to follow through with it. I'm very skeptical. I really don't believe a lot. I think a lot of it is just, them selling us on something and then doing the exact opposite once they get where they want to be. And
I agree.
Sucks to feel that way.
And I would just, I'm not trying to sidetrack the conversation here, but, there's a lot of people who are disgruntled enough to, do their own personal protesting in various ways that are untraditional. And, I'm not opposed to thinking, okay, if this doesn't work, because I'm definitely going to vote, and I think we should all vote. However, we're going to have the most rallied election ever. When you're watching all these other countries who have the same election year, what's going on across the world, it's going to get quite intense. And I really feel like there's going to be no holds barred. There's going to be lawlessness ensuing, already is, in my opinion, to create distractions. And, I think that I'm personally preparing myself. Okay, what now? What now do I have to do personally to show my objection to everything that I see in every direction that I look? So, there's the Gen X movement, and they've got some good ideas. I don't know if others who are younger are following suit to some of that, or even following the group, but it's some things that I think will make an impact. So I encourage you to. It doesn't matter your age. I mean, it's really just a bunch of fed up people, and it's a big FU, So if the vote doesn't work, hopefully we'll all circle back and find each other somewhere, because damn well TikTok's going to be off. If they can help it. And
I think that's not as big a risk as people think. I think that the law was written very badly and that the courts, it will prevail. I don't know how many people saw today, but people keep saying in this Supreme Court. The reality is that in this Supreme Court, there was one deeply unpopular decision that was probably on a track to that decision from the moment that Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote in the decision, in the original majority opinion, this must be codified into law. It will not sustain. She wrote that. She knew that the way they narrowly crafted it was never going to be long for this world, and that it had to be codified. Every single time the Democrats had a supermajority, which was 4 instances since then, they chose not to codify it because they didn't want to talk about that issue, right? And so, but when you look at the Supreme Court as it is right now, the majority of the opinions, the overwhelming majority, have been unanimous or near unanimous on issues related to free speech. Today, 2 unanimous opinions were released, including one on the abortion bill. Okay? Both unanimous today. All right? So, I'm just saying, I don't believe the TikTok ban is going to go into effect. I do believe that even in this Supreme Court, that there is a very high likelihood that free speech will prevail. And even if it's not unanimous, I think there will be a consensus on it. I do. It wasn't a well-written law. It was bad. They threw it together and it was too broad. Guys, I do need to start wrapping up this evening. I want to say goodnight to my kids, and that window is closing. So I'm going to ask everybody to please follow all the creators that are here. If you enjoyed this, please help us share the next one. I'll have it posted. The live link is already in my bio for Sunday night for Jill Stein. And I will have a live link posted for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Probably in a day or two. We really hope you guys come back over and over and over again. We want you here. And I'm so grateful we had such great participation tonight. I'll look forward to having the vice presidential candidates coming up, and I'm going to keep extending offers to Trump and Biden. I'll probably keep saying no, but I'll keep trying, everybody. On that note, we're going to wind this down. Good night, all. And, stick around. It's going to take all
Good
of us.
night. Thanks
It's
again.
going to take all of us.
Toodaloo.
Good night. I'll see you guys Monday at the next TikTok Town Hall. Night, guys.